There was smoke near the city walls. An unknown voice said that everything was useless, they could not win. The city was destroyed, not a single living soul was visible. It was the military empire of Draconia. It was interesting to know what was the basis of the strongest empire of this era. Dragonia was able to quickly subjugate other countries with the help of her invincible army of dragon riders. However, something went wrong. People were standing in the street and met a dragon rider who was riding on horseback. At this time, the main character was watching everything from afar. A bee was flying towards him, but before it reached him, it fell dead. The guy, looking at what was happening, thought that this was probably nice. He was in an enclosure filled with dragons. The protagonist was cleaning up there, collecting various trash. He was thinking about how much attention the dragon riders were getting. After some time he was called. The man addressed him as Brid Stallion and said that he was fired today. The latter was shocked by the words of the unknown. The main character asked again whether he was really fired, to which the fat man said that he was sure that he hadn't heard about disarmament. As far as Brid could hear, the great empire of Draconia had already subjugated all the surrounding countries. They left the smaller countries alone, which were not worth attacking. The higher-ups had decided that military personnel were no longer needed. The man explained that this was why they were getting rid of all the junk. Brid thought about how he had long ago begun to notice that the number of dragon trainers had begun to decrease. It did not come as a surprise to him. The job of such a trainer is quite a challenge. Eternal dirt, the possibility of getting injured, but the main problem is their smell, which cannot be washed off. With such a job, it is simply impossible to get the attention of girls. Everyone who left this position looked so happy. The main character asked out loud if the man was sure that he could leave like that. To which the latter replied that this was certainly commendable, but the soldiers were capable of taking care of themselves. In response to this, Brid said that taking care of dragons was not that easy. He explained that each of them has their own character. Some of them can be obedient, but most of them are very picky about their attitude, and that's not all. The dragon stables need repairs, and the health of the dragons themselves also needs to be monitored. Feeding and cleaning up after 100 dragons is quite a task. They need to be fed and given medicine. If they had no other trainers left, it would be bad when he was fired, to which the man asked why they didn't just kill the dragons until they could handle them. To which the main character said that you can't just kill dragons, which have become the symbol of Dragonia. In response to these words, the man said that he doesn't care, after which he pushed the main character away. The man asked if Brid had heard how much it cost them to keep all these dragons. The latter were parasites that sucked money out of them. Because of their size, they need huge stalls. Medicines for them also cost a lot of money. Sometimes they die despite all efforts. After that, a person must raise a new dragon, which entails expenses. If anyone knows the high cost of keeping dragons, it's Brid. If he can save their lives by firing them, it might be the only thing he can do for them, as he's just a commoner. The main character said that he understood everything, after which he took out of his bag a collection of all the information needed to care for dragons, and then handed it to the man. The latter struck with his hand to knock the book out of his hands. He said that they would not need it, because Brid was an ordinary breeder, he had nothing to teach them. The main character thought about how he worked there for 20 years. They yelled at him, but still trusted him with the job. He thought that this was how they valued him. It turns out he was wrong. Brid realized that his job could be done by someone else. It could be anyone. The guy started getting angry. He clenched his hands into fists. At that moment, the man stepped on his reference book. The protagonist approached him, pulled his leg to get the book, and said that he would like to take it back, after which, without saying goodbye, he said that he would pray for their health. Dragonia, the first dragon stables. The protagonist was inside, packing his things, when two men in armor came in. They laughed and asked if he had been fired. They started talking about how he wasn't capable of anything anyway, which is why he was stuck in this job. If they were him, they would be out of here in a heartbeat and going to hang out with girls. Then the main character asked if he could really trust them with this job, to which they told him not to worry. If even an old man like him could handle it, then they would certainly succeed. Brid thought they were bad-mannered guys who always dumped all the work on him. One of the men asked about how the dragons apparently just needed a good kick and they would obey. The other agreed. At that moment, one of the men approached the dragon and kicked him. The protagonist thought that dragons have strong scales and thick muscles, and this dragon has a rather calm character. Their kicks are not enough to anger him. At the moment he needs to take care of himself. He could get a job in a store or in a field, maybe even in some transportation business, or as a cook. He is thinking about trying something new, not his old job. The protagonist thought that he was getting a little heated just thinking about it. At that moment, one of the men asked if something was wrong. He also asked if he really had any problems. Brid looked at him angrily in response. This made the man angry. The latter said that he was a bad person. Did he really want to die? The moment the man swung his sword towards him to strike, the dragons began to make sounds as if they were protecting him. The men immediately became frightened and ran away. As they ran away, they told him to train them better next time, to which he tried to explain that he had been fired. After that, he turned to the dragon and thanked him for helping him out. The protagonist thought that, before leaving, he needed to say goodbye to them properly, so he went up to each dragon and stroked them. He had one last dragon left. It was in the oldest dragon stable. It was created at the very beginning of the formation of the Dragon Rider army. This staircase leads to one single dragon. When he came down, there was a huge dragon, which was behind bars and also chained with huge chains. His name was Barbarossa. She was the oldest dragon in Draconia. She is also the leader of all their dragons. She was very large in size. Even though it is now retired, people say that the heroic king who founded their empire once sat there. Barbarossa looked at the main character attentively. The latter was a little shocked because usually Barbarossa lies motionless. And suddenly, the dragoness began to growl. The protagonist thought that she saw right through him. He said out loud that he came to say goodbye. The dragon seemed to understand his words. She looked at him very directly. Brid explained that he had been fired to cut costs. He couldn't believe that they had treated him like this after all he had done for them. The protagonist also asked her to look after the other dragons for him. He explained that she was so smart, she would succeed. At that moment, the dragoness began to shake her head, as if answering him negatively. To this, Brid asked if she was really worried about him. At that moment, the dragoness stared at him intently. The protagonist thought that his colleagues always looked down on him. He was not popular with girls, he was never praised for the work he did. He thought that he would never be rewarded for his efforts. But seeing the dragon he cared about so much worry about him made it feel like it was all worth it. He thought about how he couldn't hold back his tears and said out loud that he was about to burst into tears. The protagonist turned his back to her, then said that he would pray for her health, and then walked away. The dragoness clearly didn't like these words. She started trying to break the chains. The guy was shocked by what she was doing. After some time, the main character found himself in her teeth. At this time, the men who would do his job were walking down the street. One said that he would never forgive him and the dragon, he would show them all. Then, they heard screams. At this time, Barbarossa was breaking down another wall. The protagonist asked what was going on and then tried to stop her, but the dragoness seemed not to hear him. She just rushed away. The guy was on her back, trying to hold on so as not to fall. The dragoness freed the rest of the dragons, after which they all ran away. They broke down every stall so that all the dragons could free themselves and then leave the area. Barbarossa and the other dragons swept away everything in their path. They broke down walls, destroyed buildings. The main character could only pray to God. Brid turned around and saw that all the dragons had broken out of their stalls, that they were really going to leave with him. At that moment, they were already approaching the gate that led out of the territory. There was one guard standing there. When the guy turned his head to the side, he saw a bunch of dragons that had demolished the gates of the state. The main character was in shock. He was thinking about what was going on here. Some time passed. Brid opened his eyes. The sun was shining brightly. The birds were chirping. He sighed and thought about how great he had been taking a nap. As it turned out, his back was leaning against a dragon. When he opened his eyes, he saw that there were dragons around him. He wondered where he was. Then he decided to find a pond to wash himself. He's been exploring the country's surroundings, so he's somewhat familiar with the local lands. But if he had to guess, he'd say they're somewhere in the north. It's a little cooler here at this time of year. Dragons have a hard time in cold climates. The protagonist wondered why the dragons had come here. There was only one reason. They must have thought that he was planning to escape from the Empire. Brid thought that leaving the Empire's territory was a good idea, but they might have trouble finding food here. Dragons eat a lot of food, several kilograms of grass and several liters of water. The grass in this region is much shorter. With so many dragons, it will disappear in no time. To be honest, the places they passed through have already turned into wastelands. But these dragons brought him here because they trust him. He can't let them starve, so he has to do something. The protagonist saw a cart coming, after which he turned to the dragons and asked them to move a little to the left. The boy went to explore the forest. He saw a nest of a large python. This is a huge poisonous snake, capable of swallowing a baby dragon whole. Even a healthy dragon will have a hard time fighting this monster. It's better not to provoke him, he has a minimal supply of medical supplies with him, we need to find a more suitable place to rest. The protagonist noticed something in the sky. He saw that there was a flying dragon holding a large python in its claws. Brid wondered if he was hunting, but then he thought it was something else. After that, the dragon let go of the python and then began to look towards Brid. Literally immediately, this huge dragon landed near the main character. The latter even flew to the side because of the shockwave. When he more or less came to his senses and sat down on the ground, he saw this dragon close up, and there was someone on its back. The protagonist thought that it was a human, that's why he had such a premonition. He was just thinking that the movements of a wild dragon should be more natural. The man at that moment asked him about whether he had dodged. Fully armored, Unknown said that he would not miss anymore, at which point Brid asked him why he was attacking him at all. The knight asked about the fact that he is a member of the Dragon Corps of Draconia. He does not remember them being allowed to enter this territory. The protagonist thought that he had screwed up. Being outside the Empire meant being in another country's territory. Draconia had warned other countries about the invasion, and he had brought 100 dragons with him. Brid immediately started shouting that this was just a misunderstanding. He asked to be heard. There was no point in arguing anyway. The protagonist thought that his opponent could easily deal with a large python, so he couldn't die due to some misunderstanding. The boy immediately turned away and asked Barbarossa to show herself. At that very moment, the said dragon appeared from the forest. 2 dragons clashed. The knight was shocked by what was happening. The protagonist thought that such a flying dragon has great power, but it is extremely limited. Brid immediately started shouting to Barbarossa to attack from the right. The knight thought that the guy wasn't very smart because he could hear everything. He immediately turned to his dragon and told him to be careful, the attack would be from the right. But at that moment, something strange happened. Barbarossa attacked from the other side. The knight wondered if she had disobeyed his order, and then he realized that the real order had been given not by voice, but by gestures. The protagonist said that Barbarossa was a good man. Everything worked out according to plan. He thought to himself that all this was possible only because Barbarossa was next to him. At that moment, the knight thought that he had lost. However, Brid managed to catch him before he got hurt. He thought that it was good. If he got hurt, it could cause another misunderstanding. After that, the main character turned his gaze to his dragon and thought that he had been bitten by a large python. His left leg had lost its color. Brid thought about how to get rid of all the poison as quickly as possible. He saw the knight's spear, then took it and said that he would lend it. Then he ran to the dragon, and then began to remove the poison. The dragon began to scream in pain, as the protagonist had to cut the flesh, but the latter said that everything would be fine, he would soon recover. The knight asked if he had been poisoned, to which Brid explained that despite all his dragon power, one should definitely not be too self-confident. There are many things in nature that can kill them. After that, the guy handed the spear back to the knight. The latter thanked him for it. It dawned on the protagonist that this knight was trying to kill him. He started to get nervous. The stranger realized that Brid was worried, so he took off his helmet. Under it was a very pretty girl. She told him not to worry because she lost. The main character asked in shock if his opponent was really a woman. He was completely confused. The girl said that defeating a flying dragon with a land dragon amazes her. And besides, he managed to heal her dragon's wound, and she didn't even notice it. Moreover, he returned her weapon to her even though she attacked him. This means that the protagonist is confident in his abilities. The girl said that she apologized to him for her rudeness, but being the local princess, she knew little about this world. Then her words reached Brid. She said that she seemed to have forgotten to introduce herself. Her name was Fiona Shin Leviton. She smiled sweetly. The girl also said that she was the princess of the northern country Leviton. The protagonist repeated this name out loud. Who would have thought that the princess would hunt a large python all by herself? And all alone, apparently. She is completely crazy. She sighed and said that it looks like she will be scolded at home again. Fiona said that since she was a princess, she no longer had the right to resist. If the spilled blood was not enough for him, then he could take her to Dragonia, only she asked not to touch her subjects. The protagonist realized that, in his opinion, she had misunderstood something again. The girl continued and said that in exchange for this, he could do whatever he wanted with her. Fiona said that she would not be against it even if he decided to make her his concubine. Brid was even taken aback by her last words. The girl said that every cloud has a silver lining. She is not married, they are the same age, but she guarantees him that she is quite resilient. Fiona began to undress and asked him what he would say. Instead of killing her, she felt like they could come to an agreement. The main character realized that something needed to be done, so he immediately jumped up to her, helped her get dressed again, and told her that he was asking her to calm down. And after that, he became more serious and asked if maybe she would listen to his story. She also became serious. When he told her everything, the girl said that everything was clear to her. He was fired. When he was about to leave, the dragons followed him of their own free will. Fiona was shocked that they fired such an experienced dragon master. She can't believe it, and then asked if Dragonia is really run by stupid people. She apologized to him for misunderstanding him, to which the protagonist said that there was no need to apologize, a princess should not bow to someone like him. At that moment, Fiona's gaze changed. She asked him his name, to which Brid told her his name. It was obvious that he did not understand what the question was about. The girl said with a serious look that he should stop belittling his merits. The main character was shocked by her words. Fiona said that he had a very unique set of skills. It seems that she was wrong about the heroic king from Draconia who holds the title of legend. The main character said that he cannot be considered the leader of the dragons, despite the current situation. It was obvious that he was sad about these thoughts, but he continued and said that he was an ordinary dragon trainer, he just took care of them. The girl smiled indulgently. Fiona said that Leviton is a weak country that can be destroyed at any moment. She constantly thinks about how to save it. In order to control a flying dragon, you need to train a lot. The girl thought for a moment and said that she thought they were destined to meet. She stood up and then turned to him. Fiona asked why he didn't join his country with his dragons, looking very determined. The protagonist jumped to his feet abruptly, after which he hesitantly asked if she really wanted to hire him, to which she answered positively and explained that with his dragons the power of her country would increase dramatically. She thought it was a pretty good deal for him. Brid thought that was an understatement, but they still had problems with food and shelter for the dragons, and for him too. Since he was silent for a long time, she decided that his answer was negative, but the guy said that he accepts her offer. It's just that there are 100 dragons here. Does she understand what that means? To which Fiona replied that they would provide them with all the necessary food and a roof over their heads. The main character changed in the Lyceum and said that he was not talking about this. The guy turned to her with a very tense face and said that she simply had no idea how much dragons stunk. It's not noticeable from the outside, but indoors their excrements will emit the most terrible smell. Does Leviton really have the ability to shelter them? If not, then by the time the necessary conditions are built, the entire country will have time to stink of this smell. He explained that this was not something to be taken lightly. At that moment, Fiona approached him, after which she sniffed him and said that he had a really strong smell, even making her head spin a little. At the same time, the girl said that she cannot say that she does not like this smell. Such a smell is not a problem for the princess. After that, Fiona said that she needed the main character, after which she extended her hand to him. The latter thought that he should be grateful to her. Then he remembered the words of other people who told him to be grateful that he had a job at all. He was just sitting on a salary, he smelled bad, he shouldn't go outside. As a dragon trainer, he was called a burden until the very end. He was never treated as someone important. He came to believe that it would be like that until the very end. The main character thought that this was the first time he had heard such words about his necessity. Over the past 20 years, he had come to believe in his own worthlessness. Brid thought that he wanted to be useful to the princess. He was overwhelmed with emotions. He began to cry bitterly, while tightly squeezing his clothes. At that moment, his dragons came up to him and started to encourage him. Fiona said that if he needed anything else, he should say so, and then asked if he had any questions. To which the main character responded negatively, after which he said that his name was Brid. Stallion, he swears to serve her faithfully and truly. At the same time, he knelt before her. After some time, they went to a new state. The girl said that they were there. The main character looked around and realized that this is what Leviton looked like. Then he saw the castle. Fiona asked about how it looked rather small after all. She also told him not to be shy, let him take a closer look. The walls of the castle have long since fallen into disrepair. They built a makeshift bridge. Most of the houses are already quite dilapidated. Most of the male population died in the war, so only old people, women and children remain here. The protagonist picked out the words about war. To which the princess explained that when she was a child, they were attacked by Dragonia. She managed to survive. But in that battle her relatives died. The country fell into chaos. However, they survived, so now she has only one duty, to rule this country and protect it no matter what it costs her. And then she turned to the protagonist and asked if it was okay that they left his dragons behind, to which he replied that he told them he would be back a little later, so it was okay. Fiona said that she understood everything, she could call dragons by whistling, but it was simply impossible to control them from a distance. His skills in taming dragons were something, he was flattered by these words. After some time, the girl reported that they were landing. The residents saw her and joyfully began to shout that she had returned. It was obvious that they loved her. They began to greet her, to which the princess thanked them and said that she had brought them many souvenirs. The protagonist, looking at this, thought that she really was a big shot. At that moment, people began to ask about who her companion was. Brid said that he forgot to introduce himself, then gave his name. Fiona said that she personally recruited him into her service. He is an amazing dragon master. The inhabitants understood her words. The princess told them that they should prepare to receive a huge number of dragons. When the main character raised his eyes, he saw that people were looking at him very cautiously. He was a little scared of this, after which he was patted on the shoulder. Fiona told them not to worry, she was sure he would definitely help them in the country. After that, she told them to get back to work, and she would show the guy the way to the dragon stables. After some time, when they had gone some distance from people, the main character said that it seemed like they weren't happy to see him. Fiona said that because their country is so remote, it's literally cut off from the rest of the world, and they were wary because he was an outsider. They'd changed their minds once they saw what he could do. The protagonist thought that her words had meaning. In the eyes of people, he could prove his importance only by his actions. Perhaps he was too naive. The girl said that he lacked the courage to have such skills. If he was as indecisive as that, they would not take him seriously. After that, Fiona suggested that he talk to her as if he were talking to a friend, to which the main character said that he didn't even know. The girl asked him what was wrong, after which she said that he could not hold back. Then she smiled sweetly and told him to know that she was quite fiery. Brid thought at that moment that her eyes were something special. And after that he collected his thoughts and said that he understood everything. He would try to discard unnecessary formalities. The girl said that he was a good guy. The protagonist said that he was still against it, calling her Princess Fiona, to which she replied that she forgives him for today, but he must be ready. The girl said that before he could blink, he would stop communicating with her so formally. After that, they walked away. At that moment, the protagonist seemed to sense something. He turned around, but saw nothing. After some time, they reached the dragon stables. Fiona called Minnie. The girl said that it was strange. Usually she could be found somewhere around here. To which Brid asked if Minnie was the local dragon master. Princess Fiona said that she is an amazing girl. She is so attached to her, like some puppy. She is so sweet. The protagonist thought that, contrary to general belief, there are quite a lot of women among dragon riders. It is much easier for dragons to get close to them, so there is nothing surprising about this. Fiona didn't understand where the girl had disappeared to, but it didn't matter. She would return sooner or later. They could just wait for her. Brid agreed and said that she was probably just busy. The protagonist told her not to worry, he just needed to introduce himself to her. There was nothing complicated about it. At the same time, a slight smile appeared on his face. Fiona looked at him, then closed her eyes and said that everything was fine. Then she was counting on him. The protagonist thought about what the princess said about needing him. That's why he came here. Words won't help here. The most important thing now is to win the locals' recognition with his actions. At that moment, Fiona came up behind him and whispered to him that she fucking loves guys who are good at their jobs, after which she wished him luck. Brid thought his heart almost stopped. The protagonist thought that he was curious about what this girl Minnie was like. He had already told the princess that communicating with people was his weak point. Things have gotten a little better with her, but she's still a huge troublemaker who controls dragons recklessly and leaves a mess in her wake. He's grateful for the work she's given him and for appreciating his taming skills. She even beat him up because he spent time with another girl. He just can't stop worrying. At that moment he felt something, after which he was suddenly attacked. The girl said that the elder sister is so cruel, she has her, but she still looks for workers. Brid thought that she was Minnie. The stranger at that moment said that he had nothing to do here, he should get out of here if he valued his life. The protagonist said that he can't do that because Miss Fiona hired him as a dragon master, so he will force her to befriend him. The girl sat down on a chair and told him to get lost. These dragon stalls belonged to her. It really was Minnie. She said that she heard that he was a good dragon master. They say that he subdued 100 dragons at once. The main theory is that one dragon master can only subdue one dragon. Does he really mean to say that he managed to subdue 100? Who would have thought that he would have the courage to deceive the princess like that? The main character tried to give her a chance to listen to him, but she threw a villa at him and said that she was repeating again, he must leave here. Brid left the stall area and thought about being fired again. He tried again and again to offer her his help, but she always snapped at him and refused. Things were bad. The protagonist thought that the dragons must be on their way to this forest. At this rate, they will be here soon. At this point, Minnie went to tend to her dragons. She started talking about leaving her alone, as if she could trust the Dragon Master. While she was lost in her thoughts, the door opened. It was the main character who called her. The girl shuddered in surprise and screamed. She got angry and said that he was a bad person, to which Brid said that she had misunderstood everything. He was not going to go inside, he just wanted to ask. The protagonist asked if she would mind if he used this free territory where there was nothing. To which the girl turned away and said that she had no idea what he had come up with there, but this territory was not her responsibility, so he could do whatever he wanted with it. Brid said that was great, permission was granted. In other words, no one would object if he carried out his orders and proved his usefulness to her. They should be showing up just then. Minnie thought it was funny, as if she would believe that the dragons would follow his instructions and meet him at the appointed place. She didn't hear any sounds, and the ground didn't shake. The girl said that if 100 dragons were approaching here, they would notice it, to which the main character said that he asked them not to make unnecessary noise. At that moment, Minnie heard something. She turned around and saw the head of a huge dragon peeking out from behind the house. After that, besides this dragon, she saw the others. They were all moving in a group, very organized. The protagonist told them that they were just in time. Well done, they really got here without making any unnecessary noise. Minnie wondered if he was lying. She looked at the dragons and wondered if they could always move so silently. The approach of one dragon could make the earth shake, not to mention their roar. After that, she looked at the guy and thought about whether he had really achieved such a result on his own. This fact made her angry, after which she ran up to him and grabbed him by the collar. Minnie said that he really wasn't lying about his skills, but that only meant that he achieved it through some kind of brutal training. She would never trust a dragon master. The protagonist was shocked by her words. He thought out the reason for her mistrust. The girl said that he would still get it from her. She would definitely bring him to clean water. When she was little, she was fascinated by the story of the Dragon Masters. Other children called her strange. Watching the masters interact with the dragons as if they were close friends, she couldn't help but admire them. But she was wrong. She understands that the main character is a very experienced dragon master, because he can control them even from a distance. However, as the girl had already said, he must have put them through the most brutal training. All the dragons were watching them closely. Minnie also said that she was more than sure that he had treated them in the most horrible way. The protagonist was shocked by her words. He began to tell her to wait, because she had misunderstood everything. At that moment, a small dragon appeared in the stable, after which it immediately disappeared. Brid noticed it and wondered if it really had that many scars. Minnie immediately ran to it, calling it Kyosuke. The protagonist thought that this was probably the name of that dragon. At that moment, the girl apologized to him and said that she had scared him, after which she asked him to come back. Kyosuke looked at the surroundings with shining eyes. Brid noticed this. Minnie said that no matter what, she didn't believe him at all. He should keep that in mind. Then she turned over her shoulder and told him that if he even tried to touch her dragon with his finger, she would kill him on the spot. The main character thought about how the little girl had scared him, he thought about how he was a weirdo, and then he thought about how he would now explain himself to Mrs. Fiona. At that moment, the latter appeared behind him, after which she asked him if he was talking about her. Brid did not expect this, so he screamed in fear. The girl said that she had sorted out her work, so she decided to visit him. It seems that things are not going so smoothly with him and Minnie. The protagonist told her what had happened. Fiona said that who would have thought that a man who had tamed 100 dragons would have a hard time with a human girl. He said that it was really harder with her than with dragons. The princess asked him if he had met Kyosuke yet. The protagonist repeated the name out loud and realized that it was that dragon. He asked what had happened to him, to which Fiona explained that he was the first dragon Minnie had ever carried. Because carrying a child was new to her, she overdid it and fell ill for 3 days. During this time, another dragon master was looking after the dragons. When she recovered, a terrifying sight appeared before her eyes. When she entered the dragon stall, she saw her dragon, who was covered in huge wounds and was also chained. The man said that he just wouldn't stop growling, so he had to give him a good lesson. He told her not to worry, he just passed out from being hit too hard. Then he came closer to her and asked her what she thought about a little date, since he was able to keep an eye on him. The man also said that it would be nice to repay the debt, but he did not finish speaking because Minnie hit him with all her strength. After which she ran up to her dragon and said that if she had known that this would happen, she would never have allowed someone else to take care of him. Being shackled in an unnatural position, without access to food and water, and constantly beaten, the dragon found himself in a very terrible state. At that very moment, Minnie realized that the dragon masters she had been cherishing all this time were nothing like what she had read about in her childhood books. From then on, she stopped trusting them. She asked him to forgive the girl if he found her behavior rude, to which the latter said that he was so glad, but he was not talking about Minnie. The protagonist said that he had already thought that she hated him because of his smell. Fiona only laughed at his words. Then the girl started laughing even louder, after which she said that she definitely didn't expect to hear that from him. Brid asked what was wrong with that. He had never been popular with girls. Fiona explained that Minnie had a huge dislike for Dragon Masters. If he wanted, she could help. But before she could even finish, the guy refused. The main character said that he could handle it himself. After all, she had shown such trust in him. Brid said that the princess herself believed in him, so dealing with Minnie was a piece of cake for him. The girl was surprised by his words. After a while, the guy was there along with the other dragons. The protagonist said that they should show Minnie what dragon masters are capable of. He looked very determined. Night had come. The moon had already appeared in the sky. Minnie opened her eyes, then jerked sharply as she realized that she had fallen asleep. After that, she turned around and saw that the dragon was not next to her. He was standing near the gate to the stables and was watching something intently. She immediately asked what was going on there. Looking over, she saw the protagonist, who was covered in mud, addressing his dragons and telling them to start working. The girl saw that the dragons were carrying pieces of wood, logs, helping to build a house. She thought that it was amazing. Could they really have built all this in a couple of days? It was obvious that all 100 dragons were working tirelessly. She thought that normally it would take a huge number of people for the dragons to work so well together, but the guy was doing everything alone. It felt like they had become one. These thoughts made Minnie sad. She saw how organized they were. It didn't seem like these dragons hated him, it seemed like they trusted him completely. Then she saw that her dragon had disappeared. She tried to call him by name, then wanted to ask him to come back, but the main character put his hand on her shoulder and blocked her way. She asked him to step aside. The girl said that Kyosuke is afraid of other creatures, and not only people, he is even afraid of dragons. Without her, he is absolutely helpless if he suddenly suffers from other dragons. The protagonist did not let her finish. He firmly told her to just watch, and Minnie obeyed him. The girl saw that her dragon was calmly communicating with other dragons. At the same time, he did not experience any discomfort, and they also treated him well. Brid said that dragons raised by human hands usually try to avoid contact with other dragons, but sometimes they need to be given a chance, otherwise they will never be able to mature and develop further. The girl thought that she had seen these signs. She had noticed how he looked at other dragons from afar. She had seen this and understood that something was wrong here. Minnie was upset. She wondered if she had really kept him locked up all this time. The main character said that Kyosuke is an amazing dragon. Usually, having lost faith in people, dragons stop contacting them. To which she replied that he kept trying to come out of his shell and look her straight in the eye, albeit in his awkward manner. The protagonist, looking at her, said that Kyosuke grew up to be a very sincere dragon, and all thanks to Minnie. The latter cried a lot. The guy reached out his hand to her to physically support her, but realized that it would be unnecessary, after which he turned to his dragons and said that they were finishing for today. The girl looked ahead and saw how the main character was smiling, and the dragons loved him very much. They licked him from head to toe. Minnie thought to herself that she was not his equal. These thoughts clearly weighed her down. After some time, the protagonist reported that the new dragon stables were ready. The guy turned to the dragon and said that it was a great job, they were great guys. He would take care of the rest himself, so they could just relax. Everyone was happy with this news. The main character thought that he was more than sure that such a large stall could accommodate 100 dragons. He needed to prepare all the necessary tools. When he started hammering nails, he thought about where Minnie was now. Brid was a little tense. He thought that he was being willful with Kyosuke, but he hoped that the girl wasn't mad at him. And right at that moment, he missed and hit himself in the arm with the hammer, causing him to scream. Right there behind him, he heard a voice. Minnie came up to him unnoticed. She indifferently told him that he was such a wimp. At the same time, she was holding a box with tools and lanterns in her hands. He was indignant at her words. The protagonist asked her where she came from, to which she replied that she just brought him everything he needed. It was clear that the girl was quietly trying to make contact. Brid was shocked by her actions. She, without turning around, said that he did not need to make tools from scratch. If he needed something, he could just tell her. It was obvious that Minnie was having a hard time speaking, but she said that he could look into her dragon stall from time to time. Brid began to talk about whether this meant that she had accepted him. The girl blushed. She started to say that so that he wouldn't misunderstand her. She was only helping him because he could be a little useful. She just didn't want to cause problems for her older sister. At that moment, the guy took her hands in his. The main character said that he was very grateful to her, to which she asked in surprise what he was saying and why he had grabbed her hand so suddenly. They both blushed. After this, Brid pulled away from her and apologized for it, adding that his gloves must still smell, and besides, all that work had left him sweating. No wonder she was uncomfortable. Minnie exhaled and said that he was not very smart because he was very wrong. The guy was shocked by her words. The girl immediately giggled sweetly. When the main character looked at her, he saw that Minnie was smiling at him very warmly. She said that he was strange. Sometime later in Dragonia, the captain of the Dragon Knights, Sarah Valiadan, knelt down on one knee and said that she was reporting information. She explained that almost all the dragons had escaped from the dragon stables, and she ordered a patrol to search for them. It was clear that the walls of the castle were destroyed, and people were inspecting them. The ruler sat on the throne in front of her. The girl explained that they were currently planning to buy new dragons. They had personally selected several agents in the trading city of Heda, but with their number of dragons. Here she was interrupted. The ruler said that she had disappointed him greatly. He asked if that was all Sarah could come up with. The girl standing next to him was only happy with his words. The man said that because of her merits on the battlefield, and also because he refused to take her as a concubine, he allowed her to work as a general in their army, but he came to the conclusion that women were incapable of anything. She is a former general of a country that was destroyed by Draconia. Moreover, after their defeat, her people were taken captive. Therefore, she had no choice but to swear allegiance to Bompard. The latter said that he did not need her dragons, which greatly surprised Sarah. He asked if she had hearing problems, after which he said that now instead of dragons they would use animals. It costs too much money to keep dragons. It's a huge burden on the country's resources. With animals, it's the other way around. There are a lot of them. They certainly won't run away from them, so they need to catch these very animals. Then Bompard laughed, waved his hand, and said that he was very smart after all. It was obvious how proud he was of himself and his decisions. Sarah left the room and thought about how wild animals would never listen to people. Even trained dragons need some time to get used to people. The very idea of taming animals sounds like complete stupidity. Actually, dragons are beasts too. It's a great opportunity to test her skills, but the human still has no say. Regardless, she must obey his orders. If only Brid were here. He is a man with a talent for controlling dragons as if they were extensions of his own limbs. He could destroy this castle single-handedly. But the main character had long since left this place. Sarah became sad and thought that he hadn't even come to visit her. At this time in Leviton, Brid was cleaning and yawning widely when Minnie called him. She invited him to come. She would show him the city. The main character stared at her in shock. Looking her up and down, he asked her if they knew each other, to which the girl replied that she would definitely hit him now. The guy explained that she just looked completely different than usual, to which she explained that she always dresses like that on her day off. The protagonist said that it suited her very well. Minnie thought to herself that, to be honest, she had never dressed like that. She hoped that she didn't look too weird. Brid asked her why she suggested he take a walk. She explained that he had been working in the stalls non-stop, so she decided he needed a day off. The guy was shocked by her words. The main character asked her what a day off was. The girl did not expect such a question from him, after which she said that this was a neglected case. She told him to go get changed. Sister Fiona said he needed a break from work, to which Brid said he understood, after which he asked not to push. She also reminded him not to forget to brush his teeth. After some time, they went to the city on a dragon. He said that in Draconia he was forced to constantly be at his workplace, but now he can return home, so, to be honest, he does not really need rest. Minnie told him to calm down. The city was already visible. She explained that only old people and children lived here, a rather lively place. The main character at that moment stood and shook his head to have time to see everything. The girl said that he was a grown man, so he should stop looking around like a not very smart person. She was considered his boss, so he shouldn't embarrass her. The guy scratched his head and apologized to her. The protagonist explained that he had simply never walked around the city like this, so it was unusual for him. At that moment, a pleasant aroma reached the girl's nose. It came from a nearby shop. Brid was thinking that he just couldn't relax. He was afraid of causing problems for his boss. At that moment, food was shoved into his mouth. He said that it was hot, then asked what was going on. She told him to eat. When he ate what was in his mouth, he cried out that it was delicious. Minnie explained that it was the meat of a spiny lizard. He said that it was very juicy, just melted in his mouth. Spiny lizards are essentially miniature versions of dragons. They are very aggressive creatures that often attack people. He wondered if things were really that good in their country if they could afford to eat spiny lizards every day. Apparently, hunting animals was one of the local traditions. The main character thanked her and said that if this was a reward for his work, he wanted to work there forever. The girl laughed at him. Then she asked him if he wanted to visit another place. After some time, Minnie took him to the market. There were many people there, they were selling different food, and you could also eat there. The girl asked his opinion and said that their market was a real pride. Brid said that the place seemed even busier than the rest of the city. She explained that they had a big catch today, so there were more people than usual. Minnie said that she was talking about the python that her older sister Fiona had caught. She was more than sure that parts of its body were already being sold somewhere. The protagonist thought that he had expected nothing less from her. Now that Minnie mentioned it, he could really see that there were traders from other countries here. The girl explained that the old man had some kind of extraterrestrial skills, then explained that the gloves on her hands were his work. Brid said that this was really great work. He took her hand and said that if the materials were not reliable, they would have come apart at the seams long ago. He could tell that this man hated botched work. Such quality products are a real rarity. Then they saw a python below. The protagonist asked if this was the same big python. It was bigger than the one he had seen before. Minnie explained that it seemed that because of its size they were having a hard time, old people couldn't handle it. The guy decided to go down. People saw him, to which he said that he was not promising anything, but would they mind if he helped them? To which they answered that they really were waiting for help from young guys. One of the men pulled his back. They started telling him to try to pull his skin with all his strength. He immediately started doing these actions. People in the crowd started saying that it took 5 people to pull it off, and this young man was clearly very strong. The men started talking about how amazing it was. A girl came up to him and said how amazing it was, and he responded that he was glad he didn't break his skin. Minnie didn't understand his words, to which the protagonist replied that if he had torn it, all the effort would have been wasted. One wrong move, and all the value of this product would have been lost. The girl asked him not to be stupid, because a person is not able to tear the skin of a large python. When she looked more closely, she was very surprised. As it turned out, he really almost tore her. She thought about how strong he was. Apparently, he acquired it from daily care of dragons. She thought that he must have a limit. The girl thought about the dragons he had worked with. Maybe he could even compete with dragons in terms of strength. The guy stood there and rejoiced that he had received a piece of excellent skin. Minnie continued to be deep in her thoughts. At this time, the men ran up to them and thanked him again for his help. He had helped them out a lot. They explained that they would not have been able to cope with her. They started saying that he was all dirty, that he had soiled his clothes because of them. For them, this is normal, and they don't want to waste water. After all, there is no normal water source in their country. The main character realized that because there are no big rivers in this country, they are forced to get water from wells. But the main difficulty is that it is very difficult for old people and children to manage them. The guy immediately imagined that if a river appeared in the city, he would go swimming there with Fiona. She would talk about how wet she got and then ask how he was going to make amends. At that moment, he was pulled out of his thoughts by Minnie, who asked him what the hell he was doing. At the same time, she hit him in the face. The guy replied that nothing like that was happening. Then she also joined the conversation about the river and said that it wouldn't hurt them. It wouldn't hurt her to swim too, to which Brid said that he could build a river here. After all, he likes bathing suits so much. People immediately jumped up to him and asked him if he could really build a river here. It was amazing, no wonder Mrs. Fiona trusted him. People started asking if they would really have their own river. Everyone started talking about how this young man would bring them a river, but it was unclear how he would do it, since there was no river nearby. People said that they shouldn't be rude. This man was brought by Mrs. Fiona herself. The protagonist realized that he couldn't tell them the truth. He couldn't let them know that he blurted it out at random because of his fantasies. People started thanking him. He realized that he simply had no other choice. The protagonist imagined how people from the city were frolicking in the water. He asked Fiona if it was true that Minnie had gone shopping, to which the girl answered positively and explained that only the 2 of them were left. The guy turned his gaze to her. They both blushed. after which the distance between their faces began to decrease significantly. At this point, the protagonist woke up. He realized that he was currently kissing one of the dragons. He sat up on the bed, and the dragon tried to bite his head. When he came to the stalls, he fell on his knees in front of Minnie. He said that yesterday he said that he could bring the river here, to which he apologized and said that he blurted out without even thinking. The girl said that it was bad, although she herself was good, since she took his word for it right there. She asked him what he was thinking about. The guy was thinking about Fiona, but he didn't talk about it. Minnie said that unfortunately for him, this country is quite small. Rumors spread very quickly. She is sure that his statement reached the palace. He realized that if he confessed everything, he would be considered a fraud. Most likely, he will be forced to leave this place he has been looking for so long. That is the best case scenario, and in the worst case, he and the dragons can simply be torn apart. The main character said decisively that he would have to go in search of a water source. He and the girl were very serious at that moment. After a while they went into the forest. She said that he was quite sensitive. Was he afraid that they would talk about him for lying? To which he replied that he did not want Fiona and Minnie's reputation to suffer because of him. The girl said that she wouldn't care much. Then he interrupted her and said that maybe she should stay in the city. She said that he wasn't very smart. The forest was full of dangers. How could she let him go alone? She also asked him how he was going to find a water source. The main character replied that he would ask him for advice, after which he finally climbed the rock. Up there, near the well, was a dark blue water dragon named Undine. Brid greeted him. This is a water dragon, as the name suggests. They live mainly in water. On land they are quite slow, but in water they can easily catch their prey. Among female soldiers they are very popular, kind, and easy to train. Minnie was surprised by this, to which the main character explained that water dragons have a special ability to find a source of water. They literally smell water from kilometers away. The girl was surprised and asked if it was really possible to do this in the forest, where there were a lot of other smells. He explained that it only reacts to the smell of water, because they love it very much. With its help they will quickly find a water source. Minnie said that the forest was huge, to which the guy replied that she was right. The forest stretched for several thousand kilometers, but the only thing they could do was hope that he would be able to find at least something in this thicket. However, Undine would spend too much time searching, and he did not want to delay it, sowing even more mistrust in his direction. At that moment, the girl jumped down. He asked her what she was doing there. Minnie explained that she was practicing throwing a spear. They were in the woods, anything could happen. Brid said that he realized that by hitting the monster with the spear and pulling the rope, she would allow the wounded man to retreat. And also, the main character realized that it can be thrown over long distances. Then he waved his hands and said that he would borrow her spear for a short time. The girl asked him what he had in mind. He replied that this way, they wouldn't have to go through the entire forest in search of water. After that, the guy threw the spear into the ground with all his might. When it stuck there, he pulled it back. Then he turned to the dragon and asked if it had really missed, to which she nodded in agreement, after which the main character said that this time it would definitely work. He prepared to throw the spear again. Minnie asked him if he was trying to cover more ground to search, since there was soil on the tip and Undine could smell the water. He explained that they would find the water source faster that way. Brid said that at least they could rely on the dragon's strong sense of smell. The girl thought that only such a fool could come up with something like that. At that moment, Undine's eyes opened wide. He started making loud sounds, after which the main character realized that the water was in a certain direction, which meant that the source was getting closer. They started moving in that direction. Minnie was surprised that the monsters hadn't attacked them in all this time. It's not that she doesn't mind, but it's a bit creepy. To which the protagonist replied that he did not think they would attack them. The girl asked him why he was so confident. Brid said that he lets Undine mark her territory regularly. That's why the little monster won't come near them. He even took some of the droppings with him, to which Minnie said that he shouldn't show her that. He explained that the droppings of mighty dragons would not attract even a fly for several days, and that you could leave them behind and follow the chain home. Life had taught him that you need to use everything for your survival. During the age of Dragonia, he was forced to serve in the army as a dragon lord. But one day he was left alone in the forest, and he wandered around for several days, and many things happened to him. She replied that he had a hard time. Suddenly they saw something in front of them. Undine was really in anticipation. When they came closer, they realized that there really was water there, but so little of it that they would not be able to make a river from this reservoir. Minnie said that it was sad to admit it, but they had wasted their time, and then suggested that they take a bath and go home. To which Brid thought that judging by the dragon's reaction, there was much more water here. He refused. They looked in front of them and saw a huge rock. The girl said that water was slowly flowing out of this rock. The main character assumed that it was because of it that this reservoir appeared here. Minnie asked what would happen if he moved it, to which Brid said that he could try, after which he tried to move it with his hands. He said that it was useless, to which the girl replied that it moved a little. She said that he even left his handprint on it. The guy at that moment was thinking that this stone rests against a cliff. You can of course ask Undine to dive under the water, but you can't get through to him while eating. After that, the main character fell face down into the water and thought that he needed to cool down and think sensibly about what they had. The water wasn't that clean, but for some reason this place attracted Undine so much. Then he saw something at the bottom. It was full of stones and fallen leaves, and he also realized that something had really moved. This couldn't be. The pond was made of mine water. There shouldn't be any fish here. Then the main character saw a bunch of huge bubbles in the water. He immediately emerged and asked what was going on here. Minnie was on the shore at the time, watching Undine eat. She turned her head towards the main character and saw that the unknown was about to eat him. She immediately called out his name. The guy started moving his hands quickly to escape from this monster. He saw huge teeth that were trying to catch him. The girl was in complete shock, even horror. She screamed the main character's name loudly. The latter was still in the water where the unknown monster was swimming. The guy thought that the strength of his jaws was simply amazing. If he relaxed even for a moment, he would definitely eat him. He assumed that it was the Crusher. These monsters are terrible creatures that live in rivers and ponds, but the most terrible thing is the jaws. With one bite, it can split a turtle shell and several bones at the same time. The remains of the prey look like chips ground into crumbs. That's where the name comes from. The protagonist realized that the trash he noticed was not branches, but the bones of victims. He also realized that he was huge, even bigger than Undine. The boy thought that Minnie could saddle Undine and swim to him, but he almost never listens to anyone except him. The only thing that worries him at the moment is food. The protagonist realized that he definitely shouldn't hope for help. He doubts that he'll survive until help arrives. Everything is bad. He won't last more than a minute. Come to think of it, he had a case similar to this one. One cub was so reluctant to let him go that it chewed his glove until it bled. No matter how hard he tried, it wouldn't let go. But at one point he sneezed. The cub weakened his fight, but only for a split second. The experience of those days taught him that any opponent can be defeated if you take advantage of his fatigue. At this point, the protagonist came up with a solution. He reached into his bag, pulled out some droppings, and then threw them into the Crusher's mouth. To which the latter screamed loudly. Despite its poor eyesight, the monster has an incredibly keen sense of smell and taste. It is clearly unhappy that it ate such a product. So, this is the main character's chance to get out. The guy thought that this was great. He had almost escaped, but he couldn't breathe. There was less and less air. Time was running out and he wouldn't have time to surface, but if he couldn't rise, he would go even deeper. After that, Brid decided to lift one of the boulders. He thought that sometimes there were air bubbles under the massive stones. Now he could stretch a little longer. Then he saw out of the corner of his eye that the Crusher was moving towards him. He then decided to throw the recently pulled out boulder into its mouth. After that, as if the main character had gained strength, he quickly began to move to the surface of the water. When he emerged, he took a deep breath. The girl immediately called out his name. She ran up to him and asked how he was. She was very worried. Minnie asked if the Crusher had really attacked him. She had only seen him for a moment, the first time she had seen such a huge creature. The girl also explained that Undine had not moved from her place. She tried, but all in vain. To which the main character explained that he was only concerned about the grass now. When the dragon turned his gaze to Brid, all the food fell out of his mouth, as he was surprised that the guy was hurt. Minnie asked for a hand, to which he apologized to her and said that he could not even stand up on his own. At the moment when their hands connected, the Crusher appeared from the water. The protagonist thought that he no longer had the strength to fight him. At that moment, his jaws were getting closer and closer. However, at that moment, Undine approached them. Dragons are creatures that once ruled this continent. Their greatness is so great that even the strongest wild creatures do not dare to move when they see them. Minnie said that Undine was amazing. He seemed so small, but he had more power than the giant himself. Brid explained that since ancient times, water dragons have hunted the splitters. Then the protagonist told her to watch. Crusher literally recognized Undine as his master. The latter was sleeping right on top of the monster. Brid thought that he could use the strength of this big guy. He wrapped the huge boulder with a rope and handed the other end to the Crusher. Minnie asked him what he was thinking. to which the protagonist explained that he wanted to borrow the monster's strength. With a smile on his face, Brid said that, based on what he had seen, he was sure that he would be able to help them move this stone from its place. Many asked him about whether he really gives orders to Undine, and he to Crusher. Is that really their hierarchy? Then the girl said that once again she was convinced that such crazy ideas could only come into his head, to which he asked if it wasn't a great idea. Minnie tried to argue with him, but then she simply agreed with him and said that she would help them. Together, they grabbed the rope and began to pull it. When they put their efforts together, they saw that the stone was moving. With even more efforts, they prayed that it would work. A few moments later, the rock moved and water gushed out. Minnie exclaimed happily that they had succeeded. Brid said that he hoped that this water would be enough to carry the river to the city. The boy said that now all they had to do was cut down the river. They would return to the city, and he would call other dragons to help. At that moment, the girl asked him if there was too much water. And at that moment, they looked over and saw that a very powerful stream of water was pouring out of that hole. They were shocked. The water washed away everything in its path. The main character and the girl were floating on its waves. At that moment, Undine approached them, so they climbed onto his back. They immediately thanked him for his help. They were saying that there was too much water. It had already overflowed the pond. This was very bad. If it continued like this, the city would drown in water. Brid wondered if he had made things worse. At that moment, a flying dragon appeared in the sky. It was Fiona, who said that she had finally found the main character. He was surprised by her appearance. The girl asked them if they were the ones who had caused all this chaos. Brid and Minnie were scared because they realized that she was clearly furious. Brid fell to his knees and began to say that he was very sorry. He had so confidently declared that he could make a river, and in the end he had caused a flood. He understood that he did not deserve forgiveness. He was ready to pay for his misdeed with his life. Minnie also started to say that it was her fault. She should have stopped him. The protagonist did not want anything bad. She asked her not to take his life. Fiona at this point began to laugh loudly. The princess said that she thought they had misunderstood her. She came to take them with her. The boys were shocked. The girl said that she wanted them to appreciate the fruits of what they had done. After a while, they landed near the city. When the main character came out to see what was going on there, he asked about whether they could really bring a river here. People were standing in the water and trying to dig holes for the river. Every citizen of the city worked. Brid said that he did not understand how they managed to get the river safely. It was impossible. He thought that the city must have flooded with so much water. Many said that the old men were digging something there. Then the men said that after they left, everyone started preparing a ditch. Thank heavens they made it in time. The protagonist realized that they were so inspired by the possibility of the river appearing that they immediately began to prepare. For the sake of unconfirmed information, they immediately get down to business, which surprised him very much. Fiona said something she almost forgot to say, but it was she who organized the excavation work. Brid asked her again if it really was her. Minnie asked the princess about her confidence in the main character. The latter spoke about what would happen if he failed. Mistress Fiona turned her head towards them and then very gently asked why she should doubt him. She explained that she had recognized Brid. The protagonist said that he was sincerely grateful to her for her trust, but still her confidence confused him, to which she replied that it was such a trifle. Fiona said that she expects even more significant achievements from him. He should understand this himself, to which the guy tried to argue and say that he is an ordinary dragon trainer. Fiona ignored his words and said that she would look forward to even greater feats from him. He realized that it was useless to argue with her, so he said that he obeyed her. Brid was thinking that he must be a bad person if he enjoyed being manipulated by a hottie. Minnie said that his nose was bleeding. He replied that he himself didn't understand what was happening to him. After that, Princess Fiona intervened in their conversation, saying that they would celebrate the hero's return. At that moment, Minnie took his hand. At this time in Dragonia, in the northern forest, the knights tried to catch the beast, but they said that it was useless. He did not move from the spot. He did not hear them at all. The man began to say that it was nonsense to use real monsters instead of dragons. People had long tried to tame dragons, but now they were trying to tame wild beasts. Sarah wondered if there was really no way to make them obey her will. Only a few soldiers managed to mount the monster, even for a short time. At that time, she saw that someone was giving instructions to the monster he was trying to mount. The man managed to do it. He said that all that was left was to install the saddle. Then the man turned to Sarah and asked her opinion on this matter. It was the fourth prince of Dragonia, Marco. He asked if he had done well. To which the girl answered positively. He had little chance in the fight for the throne, so he joined the Order of Knights Dragons. The girl thought that he didn't like her very much. At that time, people supported him, shouted that he was great, that he managed to do it. After that, Marco came closer to the girl, he took her by the chin and said that he was great at riding women on himself, after which he asked if she wanted to try. To which Sarah replied that he should watch his words. The guy asked her not to be angry because he was joking. She couldn't love him, there were no such vile people in power in her former homeland. If only they hadn't lost to these barbarians. At this point, Marco shouted to everyone that he proposed to attack a neighboring village as a warm-up. All the women and alcohol would belong to the knights in case of victory. Everyone agreed with him, and the girl was shocked by his proposal. The men began to ask him what they would do if they were discovered by soldiers, since the village belonged to a neighboring state, to which he responded by asking what knights do in such a case. Marco turned around and with an anticipatory expression on his face said that they would kill everyone and that would be the end of it. At the same time in Lebatina, the protagonists stood surrounded by a huge number of residents. They handed him various products. He asked why they wanted to give it to him. Many explained that the farmers just wanted to thank him. People, hearing her words, began to shout that she said everything correctly. They have been suffering from a lack of water for many years, but thanks to him, work in the fields will now be much easier. This year, none of them will go hungry. They thank Brid with all their hearts. The main character started to argue and say that he hadn't done anything like that, but many interrupted him and said that it wasn't natural to receive gratitude for your work. Brid thought that although he had been able to fulfill his false promise, his soul was somehow uneasy about it. The humans continued and said that as a token of their gratitude, they wanted to throw a party in his honor. He tried to explain that he had work to do, to which Minnie replied that she could look after the dragons herself. The townspeople said that they would be looking forward to seeing Brid at the party. The main character said that the girl should save him, he couldn't do it alone. She replied that it would be good for him to deal with the problems alone. If he shows himself at the party, he will gain the respect of his sister Fiona. The main character immediately perked up, after which he said that he would take her with him. As it turned out, he was talking about the red dragon Aphrodite. She immediately appeared before everyone's eyes, as if out of thin air. The main character said that now she would ride around the hall on a big ball. He gave her an order, which she immediately followed. The residents were shocked by how he managed to communicate with dragons so easily. He is a worthy trainer. Brid thought about this little one's name being Aphrodite, the daughter of a red dragon whose kin had an ancient connection to Barbaros himself. Graceful, more like a cat than a dragon. People started saying that it was a great show, and then they asked him to enjoy the food and drinks. He said that he would be happy to do so. He also said that the drinks were very tasty. The residents began to say that the main character is a good person. He thought about the fact that he decided to drink to respect the organizers, but in the end he feels how he gradually begins to get drunk. Then the girls came up to him and continued pouring him drinks. They started telling him that his arms were so massive and muscular. He responded that they were too close. They asked if he was against it. The girls asked him if he was upset that he was so popular. They also continued to talk about how he had very strong arms. The main character thought that what kind of man would refuse such company. He did not think that he would become so popular. At that moment, a loud roar was heard behind the girls. It turned out that it was Aphrodite. The girls asked what was happening to her, why she was looking at them so menacingly, to which the guy explained that she was just a little jealous and apologized to them. At that moment, the dragon turned away, offended. The protagonist thought that once she started to sulk, talking to her became useless. Brid came up to her and told her not to be grumpy. As soon as they returned, he would feed her until she was full, so she should not be angry. He thought that the alcohol had gone to his head too much. His head was not thinking at all. At that moment, he found himself riding Aphrodite. He shouted to the others that he would be back soon. He apologized for that. The girl said that it seemed that he was popular not only with women, but also with dragons. The dragon raced across the field like crazy, leaving behind dust and a path showing its trajectory. The rider sitting on the back begged Aphrodite to stop, because he himself was already feeling ill from the furious speed. The young man looked around, and it occurred to him that if he brought the dragon to one place, she would probably calm down. He began to show her the way, where and in which direction to go, and Aphrodite obediently followed the directions. Suddenly, the dragoness stopped and looked at the place they had arrived at with huge glass eyes full of delight. It was a beautiful clearing with many strange, multicolored flowers, a forest in the distance, and petals swirling in the wind. The young man scared her off her back, picked a flower, then another. He wove a beautiful wreath and called the dragoness closer to him. He stroked her neck and prepared to hand her a small gift. He handed it to her, saying that with this wreath she would become a real beauty. Aphrodite growled contentedly and accepted the gift. The dragon adores flowers, and no matter how angry she is, weave her a wreath of beautiful flowers, and she will immediately take pity. When he and Minnie went in search of a water source, he turned into this clearing, remembering Aphrodite, who undoubtedly liked it here, and he was not mistaken. The dragon growled contentedly, and the boy thanked her for her good mood. Then he said that she looked much better and suggested that they return to the party. Suddenly, Aphrodite's eyes widened and she growled angrily again. She grabbed the bewildered guy by the sleeve and pulled him towards herself with force. He couldn't believe that the dragon still didn't want to go back there. Suddenly they both turned towards the sound coming from the forest. The boy's eyes widened as he realized what it was. From the dense forest thicket appeared huge dragons, on top of which sat people dressed in knightly costumes. Brid couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the dragon knights. He exclaimed what they were doing here, and then realized that it was completely unimportant and they needed to leave as quickly as possible. He pulled his dragon to the side, telling them to go quickly, but very, very quietly. But before they could do so, there was a sudden crack and a terrible thunder. Smoke rose up and the boy found himself right in front of the knights. They instantly remembered the guy in front of them, that he was a dragon trainer who had recently been fired, and they asked what he was doing here now. One came up to him and said that he didn't expect to find him in such a place, and asked his name. His dragon came very close and roared loudly, and fiery heat came out of his huge nostrils. A man of rather impressive size stood up on his back, with a twisted grimace of madness. Brid gasped in surprise, realizing that he must have come for his soul. Brid, almost shaking with fear, asks the man on the dragon who he even is. To which he laughs and asks how it is possible not to know him, living in their empire. The young man says that he really does not know who this man is, since he devoted all his time to caring for dragons. This man is His Highness Marco, the 4th Dragon Prince and future commander of the Order of Knights and Dragons. Although he is from a royal family, his fighting skills are beyond praise, and he also treats his subordinates well, quickly rising through the ranks of the order. Then the young man asks how such a respected person as the prince ended up here. This question of his causes shock and a wave of indignation among his subordinates. They explain that such was his will, and for such questions one can lose one's head. The prince calmly replies that everything is very simple. They are conducting an exercise in adapting these lizards to ride instead of dragons. Brid does not understand what is being discussed and how the order adapted lizards instead of dragons, since the monsters are wild and ferocious and never obey people. The prince, standing on the back of his lizard and menacingly waving his sword, impudently asks how amazed Brid must be that he lost the power of speech. The young man watches the prince's movements warily, waving his spear in all directions, not understanding where exactly he is aiming. And suddenly Marco throws it at the boy with all his might. The spear makes a circle like a boomerang and should be about to hit Brid, but fortunately Aphrodite grabs it, saving him at the last moment. The prince smirks that the guy can only run away. The young man says that they adapted these creatures perfectly, but what did he do to them that made them decide to attack him? Suddenly the prince, breaking into a scream, lifts the hair from the other side of his face, showing his scar, and asks if he really doesn't recognize him. The moment when Brid was running with the dragons, he tried to stop them and got this scar. He dishonored him and cowardly left the battle. Behind the prince's back, they began to whisper, saying that wasn't it during the trainer's escape, that you fell and hit the stone, and everyone else thought that's how they got the scar. Marco says that he is going to finish off the young man because he is a traitor to his homeland, who is accused of treason, and by bringing his head to the empire he will be honored as a hero and may even be promoted. Brute, in shock, asks what treason he is accused of, since he does not know what Marco is hoping for, but for stealing 100 dragons, it is surprising that he was not charged with such a crime. It was said that he needed to bring the young man back alive or dead, and whoever did it would receive glory and honor. Marco notices Aphrodite and says that his dragon is much braver than his master and aims his spear at her. He also adds that there is no need to worry, as Brid will die after him. Shielding himself from the flying arrows with his hand, the young man thinks that he doesn't understand only one thing: how they managed to tame the monsters. Monsters from the ancient world treat people with aggression and immediately attack when they see them on the horizon. It would take many years to tame them. and it's not clear how they were able to achieve such a result. Mark, waving spears, says to admire how disobedient they are, and yet it turned out to be so simple, all you had to do was subdue them through fear of pain. Brid looks at him with a mad grin. Marco says that before all the dust was blown off the dragons and nothing could be done with them, but these are expendable material, so you don't have to worry. Brid now understands why he was so angry and tried so hard to escape. He is a dragon trainer, someone who has dedicated his entire life to them. Even though they have tamed the monster, he, like any creature, wants to live. The young man cannot turn a blind eye to how they treat his life. The Mad Prince asks, "What's the matter? Is he angry?" The prince suggested that they see what he was really capable of. The lizards let out a terrible roar, and Aphrodite looked at them in fear, covering Brid with her body. The lizards looked at each other strangely, and the man sitting on top began to give commands to attack faster, but the animals did not move, and then he asked what was the matter. Marco called the lizard absolutely useless because it refused to move in any way, and said that since it does not obey, other measures will have to be taken. The prince decided to deal with the trainer himself and said that the young man would not be able to dodge the blow he would make. Shouts of approval were heard from behind. The arrow flew past and stuck into the ground. Marco was already overjoyed, but then a crunch was heard and his joy was replaced by misunderstanding. The young man said that it was true, he wouldn't have been able to dodge his attacks like that, but he didn't need to. The guy was holding an arrow that had just pierced his shoulder. He said that he had a valuable lesson to teach and named the principal by name, to which the man went into a full rage, shouting that he should not be addressed so familiarly. As Brid jumped onto the dragon and carried it towards the enemy, the prince continued to shout that it was unforgivable that some trainer dared to call him by name. The fight began with the dragons deftly jumping from place to place, thereby confusing the giant lizards. The prince himself shouted that this was impossible and how he managed to control the dragon so skillfully. Brid said that the prince would definitely not be able to defeat him in battle. That he couldn't reach him even with a spear from such a distance. And suddenly the weapon passed right in front of the prince's face. The young man's hand grabbed the very tip of the spear, and with this action he shocked the prince, since he had never seen anything like it before. In an instant, the man found himself lying on the ground. His comrades grabbed him and hurried away from there. They ran away saying that they remembered Brid, and he in turn breathed a sigh of satisfaction and calm. Left alone, he said that it was too close, and if they had not found that in them, who knew what could have happened? Thanks to Aphrodite's jealousy, he was able to meet them. But what were the soldiers of the Empire doing here, and did they really decide to attack Levantia? He thought that he should tell Mrs. Fiona about this as soon as possible, and in general it would be a good idea to go back. He turned to the dragoness, who sat surrounded by lizards who looked at her lovingly. The man thought that Aphrodite had earned herself new admirers. Or maybe they can't attack her because they're afraid of her. He gently scratched the dragon's head, and she licked his face with a satisfied snort. He said that they had to go, and that her mating season had not yet begun. So, to the disappointed sighs of the monsters, they returned to the city. What happened next was in the castle in Levantia in the lady's office. She sighed and said that everything was clear to her. Empire soldiers have been spotted on the borders of her domain, and the girl asks what their purpose is. Brid looks puzzled. His thoughts are clearly elsewhere. He admits that he doesn't care about it now. He turns to Mrs. Fiona and asks if she likes cleaning. Because the girl is sitting on a small sofa in a room that looks like a huge warehouse. Books, pictures, papers, clothes, and other junk are scattered everywhere. She is embarrassed and apologizes for him having to see this side of her. She is quite bad at cleaning, to which the young man says that he is in no way scolding her. The lady says that her office is usually cleaner, and the guy replies that he believes her. Fiona continues to say that she is not here today, so she had to clean herself. Brid asks who her is. The lady explains that she is talking about her maid. Then the guy asks again and gets the answer that she should be back very soon. The young man chuckled in surprise and said that for the first time in a long time he had to leave and the lady had created a real mess. Suddenly, another man appears on the threshold with some wild sounds which frightens Brid. He asks who it is and a man greets him. The person introduces herself as Vi. Full name is Vinya, and this is the personal maid of the esteemed Mrs. Fiona. Brid realizes with horror that he didn't even notice when she entered and asks how she knows his name. The girl says that Mr. Brid was previously a brilliant trainer who served the Dragon Empire and is now tearing apart Levantia with hundreds of dragons. During his stay in these lands, he built a river and helped many residents, receiving love and respect from them. He also became popular with the girls of their land. The queen says that she understands his surprise, but she is not just a maid. This is a rare kind of maid, a shinobi maid. Brid asks again in surprise. Disguise, surveillance, conspiracies. A maid hiding in the shadows whose blood belongs to the descendants of real shinobi, and Vinya is not her real name. Brid had read about shinobi in books, a special unit that specializes in espionage, and he didn't think they actually existed. He asks that don't shinobi always try to remain inconspicuous and look the part. Vinya tells Mr. Brid that this kind of shinobi only appears in literature and asks him not to mix fantasy with real life. The lady explains that she found Vinya all alone at sea with nowhere to go, so she hired her as a maid. She dyed her luxurious black hair and got rid of the clothes of her native country so that no one could find her. The young man apologized, saying he hadn't even thought about it, and the maid changed the subject, saying it was nothing to worry about. She began talking about what she had learned about the attackers. After losing all of their dragons, the Empire increased its border patrols to keep an eye on neighboring countries, and to compensate for the loss of dragons, knights began using monsters in their place. She turned to Mr. Brid and said that he had just dealt with one of these squads, where they had already used monsters. These monsters were forced into submission through pain, and she found several corpses of these sufferers near the enemy camp. The lady pulled that now everything is clear. And yet she doesn't understand why it was necessary to tame monsters. It would have been possible to buy new dragons, it's not such a big problem. The Empire is ruthlessly trying to cut costs, and right now there is a wave of layoffs among service personnel. Brid said to himself again about the layoffs to cut costs. He remembered being laid off for the same reason, and now they're hiring amateurs for low wages. Fiona can't believe this is all about money. She asks how bad things are in the Empire and is told that they are worse than anyone could have imagined. They resort to any resources, and their policy is now based on recruiting more employees at a low cost. The lady says that their situation is deplorable, mass unrest, cutting expenses on everything possible. The maid agrees with her and adds that a country cornered in such a case can do only one thing. Namely, to start a war. Today they conducted a military exercise on the borders, waiting for the reaction of neighboring countries, and if there was a chance to start a war, they also tested how the monster would behave in the field. The lady is sure that after full preparation they will begin to attack, since she cannot close her eyes to this, and says that the decision has been made. It is necessary to infiltrate the enemy garrison and carry out sabotage while hiding their involvement. She asks Vinya to do this. The maid, falling to her knees, says that she will do whatever her mistress wishes. Brid noticed that a minute ago the room was in complete disarray and chaos, and she cleaned everything up in an instant. Vinya also says that she has one request for her mistress. Along the border, the army of the Dragon Empire garrisoned. People were setting up tents, carrying some things, and just talking to each other. The girl who was watching the events through binoculars giggled and dismissively called them little soldiers. There are more than 100 soldiers, and they are already building a fort behind the tents. They will have to carry out sabotage in this garrison, but both believe that it will not be easy. Brid, who is lying next to the girl, asks her why she took him with her, because he is clearly not suitable for this job, and Vinya mockingly asks why he thinks so. Infiltrating a garrison full of disgusting and sweaty boars alone is clearly not a safe undertaking. Brid said he wouldn't mind sneaking in with her, but his face was already well known. The girl told him not to worry about it. A little makeup and he would be a completely different person. With one movement of her hand, she performed a miracle. The young man asked if this was some secret shinobi technique. He had the feeling that she had even changed his skull. The girl replied that she had long ago figured out how to transform them. The young man specified what he would need to do, infiltrate the garrison and cause an explosion, but the girl interrupted him, saying that she would do it herself. Then he asked what he should do, and Vinya said that he would have a very important mission, and then asked him to turn his back to her. She jumped onto his back. And in an instant, the shape of their bodies changed and they found themselves under some kind of insanely huge armor. Brid asked where she got this armor from, since only the vice-captain of the Empire wears such armor, and asked whose blood was on the gloves. Vinya replied that it was a secret. The young man thought that her abilities were really scary, but in a critical situation he would have to ask her for help. Vinya said that she relied on him. They approached the black dragon, Odin. This guy may be silent and emotionless, but there is no doubt about his combat power. He is one of the most reliable dragons and stands out from the rest thanks to his agility and speed. In the worst case, Odin will help them out. When they started to approach him closer, the dragon suddenly disappeared. He hides his presence in an amazingly good way. Vinya exclaimed that he was just like a shinobi and only a few dragons could hide so skillfully. Brid thought that, to tell the truth, it was not he who trained him. The girl turned to Brid and said that there was an enemy lair ahead and there was no way back. She asked if he was ready, and he answered in the affirmative. The dragon flapped his wings and they flew off towards adventure. Vinya says that if it fails, she will sort everything out, and Mr. Brid's job is to behave naturally. She adds that they look suspicious, so he needs to straighten his back, but in general he holds up just fine wearing it and this plate armor. Brid explains that he has often had to carry wounded dragons, so it does not seem like such a difficult task, and at that moment, they meet soldiers. The man thinks that it is necessary to behave decently and naturally. The soldiers, noticing the man coming towards them, raised their hands to their foreheads and saluted Vice Captain Brad, because the man ordered them to continue the bark in the same spirit. Vinya, who was sitting behind him, whispered in his ear that he was holding up well and he needed to concentrate. However, when she whispered in his ear, all concentration dropped. She says that their empire is truly an amazing place. The first thing that surprised her upon arrival here was Mistress Fiona's dragon, although she is rather cool towards living beings. But there are no dragons in their country, so their appearance still amazes her. In their country, instead of dragons, there are raccoon dogs, and she is sure that Brid would be interested in talking to them. The young man still can't grasp the essence of the conversation. The girl continues to say that she herself is afraid of dogs, so she asks not to let them near her, and the guy starts to get mad because she is so talkative. He asks where he should go, and the girl replies that he should go to the back of the fort. He needs to get a little closer to the wall, and she will come out and plant the bomb. If the fort is built, the Empire's next move will be to attack Levantia. For the sake of Mrs. Fiona, for the sake of all the residents, they must stop them, and suddenly someone from the tower shouts that Vice Captain Brad is arriving. And the new recruit Bania greets the vice captain and says that he hopes that he will conduct training today. He really asks him to, and Brid thinks about how close they know each other. He apologizes and says he is busy now, and suddenly other people appear and say that if he wants to train with the vice captain, then they too, but Bania says the boss is busy. He is immediately asked the reason for the refusal. The crowd immediately assumes that he refused Bania to have sex with all of them 3 times, to which Brid says that he didn't mean that. Then Bania says that he understands everything and says how kind the vice captain is to suggest that they go to the training ground right now. The 2 from behind grabbed him and put him on the training ground. The girl said that something bad had happened to the little one, to which the boy asked in surprise how small she was. Eventually, they dragged him to the range, and he decided to give them the task of practicing swinging the ball. He decided that while I was not busy, he could quietly slip away. But as soon as he wanted to do this, he was called and asked how he could swing. Maybe he had some comments. This guy is attracting too much attention. Brid pulled that he thinks everything is fine. This caused a lot of questions from other people. They started asking about the wrong foot or the captain. He didn't give any advice during the entire training session. He used to find fault with everything. Everyone thought that something might have happened, and Brid was horrified to think that now he was suspected of something. A young man approached them and asked to spar with him. He asked if he was annoyed by what they were saying about him, to which the young man replied that he didn't care what they said. Then the guy said that he just needed to fight him and demonstrate the strength of the vice captain, and he began to attack. Brid was shocked that this guy didn't listen to his commander at all and really admired him so much. There was nothing to do, he had to fight. Suddenly, the girl who was sitting behind him used shinobi art. Literally, in a few minutes, the fight was over. The guy said that it was impossible and he parried all his attacks. While everyone was in shock, the girl whispered into the boy's ear that they needed to synchronize their breathing. In a few seconds, the fight ended with Brid's victory, and the girl said that it was time to end it and stop wasting time on him. And the man brought the sword to the neck of the young man who was sitting on his knees and said that that was all for today. Their battle became a real example for the others. Everyone started talking about how cool the vice captain was, how he almost killed Banya, and it was not for nothing that he was their vice captain. After all, such a person is worthy of leading the Empire's troops forward. Brid told the girl that she almost cut him, and Vinya asked what he was talking about, since she just wanted to teach him manners, as befits a shinobi maid. She hugged the boy tighter and said that it was a miracle they got out without even blood. Brid agreed that it was amazing. Then Vinya said that they would now rest a little and then go plant the bomb. While Brid was resting against a tree and Vinya had gone to plant the bomb, a girl in a strange costume approached the young man and said that she had just been looking for Commander Sir. And the young man repeated the name and realized that she did not recognize him because of the disguise. She said that they had an important meeting today and said that she hoped that he had prepared all the necessary materials. The man asked again what meeting they were talking about. The woman asked what was wrong with his voice and whether he had caught a cold, to which the man replied that his throat had really been hurting all day and coughed demonstratively, as if confirming his words. If they don't show up for the meeting, their superiors won't leave them alone, so they'll have to be patient. He doesn't know what the meeting is about or what awaits him there, which means his cover will be blown quickly. The woman commanded that he needed to quickly follow her, and he urgently began to think about an excuse to escape. Vinya has gone away to plant the bomb, and he needs to buy her time. He began to think hard about what topic might interest her, and suddenly an idea came to his mind. He began his sentence with the words, "Commander, what do you think?" Brid himself instantly regretted asking. She replied rather dryly that the decision was not subject to reconsideration. She thought he knew that she had previously had conflicts with their superiors and she could not disobey their orders. Today's meeting will also include people who support this order, a gathering of amateurs who are ready to sell their opinions for gold and the approval of their superiors. But it is their duty to convince them of the wrongness of this judgment, so she relies on his support. Brid breathed a sigh of relief, but Sarah still loved dragons, and it was good that she still had feelings for them. He said he was glad she didn't support the idea, and he was afraid that she liked working with monsters. She turned around and walked on, saying, "What is he talking about? Of course, she prefers to work with dragons, because they are much stronger than monsters. Levantia will have huge problems if attacked. To weaken the army of Draconia, it might be worth insisting on using monsters in battle." At that moment, Brid realized that he was completely confused. He added that he still thinks that monsters have their advantages. The girl asked what advantages he was talking about. Lizards, for example, are very fast. If you use their potential correctly, they will be very useful, only they never really tamed the monsters. And dragons can move in any terrain, are strong in body and obedient. The young man answers that each creature can be used for everyone. For example, dragons have their own character. They differ in both physical and mental abilities. In the past, dragon trainers selected a dragon for each soldier for the best synergy. She asked him if he remembered the dragon who was so timid that he couldn't even fight. It was Odin. Now Odin is a guy you can rely on, but before, as soon as a soldier saddled him, he would immediately start whining, and at the first sign of danger he would retreat, categorically refusing to fight. The Empire wanted to get rid of him, but Brid tried to figure out how to liberate him. Timidity is a kind of caution, and Brid wondered if this high level of alertness could be used to Odin's advantage. Thus began Odin's trial and error training. He became one of the strongest dragons in the Empire and their partner. They wanted to abandon the strongest dragon because they could not find an approach to him. The same with monsters. If you look at them from a different angle, it is possible to find their advantages that can be turned into strength. The girl thought about it. And suddenly, there was a lot of explosions and noise, and the monsters came out of their cages, and the fort was engulfed in flames. Brid thought that it was well done and the plan was executed, which meant it was time to retreat. The girl said that she would check the cause of the fire, and the man himself decided to go give instructions to the rest of the soldiers. He ran in the other direction. Vinya appeared from somewhere to the side, saying that it was well done. Brid was happy to see Vinya. She apologized for making him worry. He said that he would prefer that she not leave him alone in the future, and she apologized again and said that thanks to him everything had gone smoothly in the past, and her mistress would certainly be pleased with the result. Suddenly they were discovered by the guards, who realized that he was an intruder and gave the order to kill him. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Odin appeared. The girl, smiling charmingly, told Mr. Brid to go ahead while she dealt with these soldiers. Vinya swung and prepared to strike. The young man asked if she was sure of what she was doing, and the girl told him not to forget that she was a shinobi and she could deal with a couple of soldiers. Then Brid, making sure that the girl knew what she was doing, sat down on the dragon and they flew forward. The girl, looking after the flying youth, said that this mission was still incredibly interesting, and if Mr. Brid could escape, then it would also be the easiest mission. While the girl was distracted, someone galloped past her with a wild roar. Vinya realized with horror that she had escaped, but she thought that Mr. Brid would definitely be able to deal with her. An unknown girl, who happened to be very close to the young man, said that it was him after all. The young man asked again whether he had been exposed. What did the young lady say? That she recognized him immediately by his voice. She knows the faces of all her subordinates and soldiers. The guy thought that he was not under her direct command and was surprised how she was able to remember him. The girl added that there was no way Brid could know the history of Odin, since he had only recently joined their army. She said that instead of fighting, she had a proposition for him. The young girl asked him to return with her to Draconia. He is an incredibly valuable asset to the Empire. He never complained about unreasonable orders, he did everything that was required, and he was always in the right place at the right time. She wants him back with her. The young man cannot believe that the commander really wants to return him to the Empire. She also added that if she had known in advance that they wanted to fire him, she would have done everything to prevent this. She promises that Levantia will not be attacked. If he goes with her, she will beg his superiors to promote him and treat him properly. If they refuse, she will protect him and he can stay with her. She had already hoped that she had been able to seduce him, but Brid was forced to refuse. She asked him why, not understanding, because these were the most ideal conditions for him, considering his position. The young man replied that he was pleased that the commander had rated him so highly, but all her words were ordinary promises. He repeated her words. That she promises not to attack, will beg if he falls with her and will protect. In the Empire, breaking such promises is the order of the day. He added that Princess Fiona was different. She gave him all this at once, without any promises. He had nowhere to go, and she called him to her. Despite the discontent of others, she kept him by her side. He swore allegiance and would not betray. Suddenly the girl laughed loudly, which caused confusion in the young man. She said she had heard that Princess Fiona was a great person and it seemed the rumors about her were true. Brid confirmed that she was wonderful. The girl added that he himself is incredibly kind and amazes her how diligently he tries to explain to her the difference between her and Fiona. She asks what she should do as he describes her. Brid started to say that he didn't understand anything, but the girl grabbed the sword from behind her back and told him not to play the fool. Compared to the noble princess, she is the commander of the Empire, and she must take him and her favorite Odin by force. The chase began. Brid asked what the commander was doing and why she was chasing him, to which she laughed and asked what kind of stupid questions these were. She just deliberately caught him with her own powers. The young man asked her to stop, saying that he had already said that he was faithful to Lady Fiona and would never betray her. She was surprised at how loyal he was to her and asked if he and the princess were really that close. Meanwhile, her weapon crashed into the ground and shattered the stone into tiny pieces. Brid realized that his only option was to flee. He told the lady to surrender because he would never get his empire back. The girl said with a slight smile that she refused and could not accept such an answer. Then Brid realized that there was no point in talking to her. He noticed that the girl's movement looked suspicious, as if she was leading him somewhere, because the creature she was riding was jumping from side to side, not allowing Odin to turn off the path. The youth leaned closer and said that he did not know the area well, but Odin could certainly help him, and then he told him that it was time to use his caution to avoid any dangerous area. He realized that the girl was not going to stop. She kept shouting at him that his attempts were charming but at the same time annoying. The guy came back closer and said that if they had nowhere to turn, then they needed to act. The dragon flapped its wings. And at that moment, the young man realized where she had led them. Although dragons seem slow, thanks to their wings, they are able to move at incredible speeds. The girl assumed that she would try to use the uneven terrain to shorten the distance. She supposed that the only way to stop them was to block the way, but even on such rocky terrain she and Odin were doing just fine, but she advised them not to be too hasty in their delusions. Her hunt has just begun. She made a move, and suddenly, stones began to fall from the cliffs. It so happened that Brid stopped seeing anything and he had only one solution left. Since the collision cannot be avoided, he will try to do everything differently. The girl knows what he has planned, but he cannot avoid the collision. Brid said the commander had completely underestimated them. If the rockfall had started earlier, he would not have had time to give the command to Odin, but since the left passage was blocked by stones, it remains to move in a straight line. But as it turned out later, they ended up in a dead end. The rockfall was a simple trick. Initially, the commander wanted to block their escape routes by leading them right to the cliff. The girl said with satisfaction that everything was going according to plan. She shouted that they had to surrender, and the young man asked Odin what he was doing. He shouldn't run and should stop. Brid doesn't understand what he's up to, because Odin has flown very close to the cliff and is unlikely to be able to jump over it. And suddenly he realized what the dragon was going to do, and he shouted at the top of his lungs for Odin to jump as quickly as possible. While the dragon was flying over the abyss, the thought flashed through the boy's head that it was all over. However, the dragon landed in just the right place, saving himself and the young man. The commander was puzzled how the dragon had managed to jump over. She did not understand how he had even noticed the ledge. The dragon, with its exceptional sense of smell, was able to sense even the most subtle changes in the terrain. The girl was amazed by Odin's abilities and Brid's faith in the dragons, so now she wanted to bring them back to the Empire even more. She turned to the lizard, asking why it was standing, and ordered it to jump, saying that the heavy dragon was able to jump over, but some monster lizard could not. The young man felt all her hatred coming from the cliff. It is not surprising that Odin managed to jump over fear, the great driving force. As the commander thought, monsters only obey in extreme conditions, and said that today they were lucky, but her hunt is not over. This time they managed to escape, but she pointed her finger at Brid and told him to remember that the next time they met, he would become hers. And then she turned the lizard around and ran in the other direction. Brid fell to the ground in relief, saying that they were saved and it was close. If Sarah had a dragon under her command instead of a demonic beast, he would not have been able to escape with Odin so easily. They were very lucky. The last thing he thought was that he really didn't want to meet her again. Returning to the kingdom, everyone greeted Mr. Brid with joy. Everyone said what a great guy he was for driving the Empire's soldiers away from their lands and how cool the Black Dragon was. He thought it was strange to receive honors, even though he had done nothing. Vinya ran up to him and said that it was the job of a hero to receive honors after a feat, and even though he tried to resist her, she said that he was a hero. Still, Brid decided that what he did today was important for their future, and everyone loudly agreed with her. Mistress Fiona greeted Brid with the words that it looked like Fort Draconia was finished, and they agreed with her, although they added that there were some difficulties, but these are details. Vinya said, Mr. Brid has proven himself to be an outstanding dragon trainer. He builds the climax with his partner and takes their characteristics into account when developing combat tactics. Of the minuses, she said that she could only point out his low self-esteem. But the mistress hired a very useful ally. The maid added that she expected nothing less from her. Fiona said she knew he was special the moment she saw him. The maid said she had some fine taste in men, but her position on Brid was a bit hard to figure out. Considering how she clings to him and says ambiguous phrases, one can doubt her chastity. Shinobi added that a princess should not behave like that. The princess did not quite understand her expression, and the girl said that she just wanted to remind her that men would be attracted to her innocence, not her promiscuity. The princess suggested closing the topic and moving on to the next point of the countdown. The fort was built in just a few days and came out on quite a large scale. The Empire's capabilities are truly astounding. According to Brid's report, the Empire actually began using monsters instead of dragons. Mr. Brid just met such a representative. She was riding a lizard monster, and I think her name was Sarah. The princess asked if this was another talented person from the Empire. She said that they were exactly what she needed, and she needed to think about how to attract such talents and the maids to Levantia, and she absolutely agreed with her. She added that this girl is also very beautiful, and is Brid's former boss. She is so attached to him that she screamed that she wanted him to return with her to the Empire. While the maid was telling her story, she noticed that the princess became sad. At this time, on the border of the Empire, a man was shouting at Sarah that they had not yet finished building the fort. She agreed, saying that Levantia had sent spies who had destroyed the fort from the inside. Unfortunately, she couldn't catch the perpetrators and she was very sorry. The man said that the report was just disgusting, and did she know how much money and effort was put into this fort? He asked how she intended to compensate for this loss. The girl said that she understands his anger and is ready to accept any punishment. A princess knight from a country that was defeated by the Empire and taken into service, she has long regretted her life. Then the king shouted that a mortal would be waiting for her, but suddenly he was interrupted by the man who had been standing in the shadows all this time. It was Marco who asked again about the death penalty and said that his father was very kind. The king sharply asked what his son was hinting at, to which he replied that taking her life was too lenient a punishment, her death would not cover the expenses they had invested in the fort, and then the king asked what he was proposing. The answer was to take away her will. In an empire, if a person cannot pay a debt, he pays for it with his life. If you strip her of all human rights and force her to work, she will be able to pay off this exorbitant debt. In the past, she was a princess knight, she was taken as a trophy. Showing leniency and making her the commander of their army turned out to be a fatal mistake. The king agreed. He appointed Marco as the new commander of the army, and her as his servant. The prince thanked his father and said that he was now very happy. With the chain already on his neck, Mark addresses the series, asking what kind of look it has. Then he thought that it was probably wrong to address it like that. He said that she had her eye on you, and he would never have thought to see her like this. He added how changeable this world is, and the girl wondered what he was going to do to her. She said she thought he was just going to put her in a cage, and he asked why, because it was just a waste of her potential. He is the fourth prince of the empire and has no real right to the throne. He was not given an education and was not trusted with anything. If things continue like this, he will not even be able to enter the fight for the throne. With military knowledge and fighting skills, they can change the course of the game, and now, since she has nothing, he offers her to dedicate her life to his success. He asked if she would help him. Meanwhile in Levant, Brid was surprised to be given a new assignment. The princess said that given the story with the fort, it is already clear that Dragonia is preparing for war, and she thinks it is time to unite the Arteria region. They will travel to the north of Levant and try to enlist the support of the Zig tribe. The Zig tribe lives in the mountains. The tribe's inhabitants undergo harsh training in the mountains, and each of them has a special technique for taming dragons. If they unite with them, the empire will not be able to defeat them, but for this they need Brid's help. The young man is not at all against it, but he is tormented by doubts. He asked what the princess was doing. She replied that this time she would go with you and she would need his strength as a bodyguard. The young man did not hide his surprise and said that the lady could rely on him. Vinya asked why they couldn't be a little more frank. She began to imitate the princess, saying that she was asking too seriously and madly when she could have asked more softly and tenderly. The princess asked Vinya to be silent for a while. Brit didn't quite understand what they were talking about, and his thoughts turned to the upcoming mission. The next stop promised to be a mountain of suitable dragons. And he began to select dragons that would be suitable for this mission. It is reported that this is a dragon wolf named Dobel, whose nose is able to detect even the faintest sense of proximity, and whose agility allows it to easily navigate difficult terrain. It is said that this is the earth dragon, Mineba. It looks like a mole, its element is earth, and it is able to break any block or mineral with its claws. The man also talks about the red dragon. His name is Barbaros. He is smart and useful in battle. He offers to take him with him. In a critical situation, he will be useful. He picked up 3 dragons that adapt well to the mountainous terrain, and wonders if this will be enough. The girl thinks that 3 dragons are too many, and they might start attacking them, and if we take more, they will anger the Zig tribe. And she would like to avoid that. She explained that their goal was to form an alliance with the Zig tribe, and if they brought dragons, they might think they were going to war against them. The man says that he is also coming with them, so there is no need to worry about the little things and leave everything to the shinobi maid. Someone said that they are relying on him. He calls everyone to the mountains. They noticed that the road seemed abandoned and wondered if they were really on the right path, since they had not spoken to the Zig tribe for a long time. The hero mused that as a mere dragon trainer he wasn't supposed to know all the details, but he was curious as to why they hadn't spoken to the Zig tribe in so long. The maid asked him if the luggage was too heavy to carry and suggested that he give it to the dragons. He replied that the dragons were already overburdened with other duties and that he could handle it himself just fine. She was surprised and asked if he was sure he could handle luggage weighing about 500 kg. He replied that he saw no problem, and added that he was more worried about Mrs. Spiona. Brid asked if she was okay. Mr. Spiona replied that everything was fine, just a little hot. He offered to carry his luggage if she was tired, and said that the dragons could give him a lift. The girl asks for water. She doused herself with water, feeling much better. The man said he wasn't as resilient as she was. Fiona said they couldn't stop and called Brit to follow her. The man said that they had already gone halfway. The girl warned that it was quite narrow here and that one should watch one step. The protagonist asked what was wrong and clarified why she had stopped. The lady was pointing at something. She pointed out that the passage was blocked by a rock, and that it was a dead end. He exclaimed that he had taken Minaba with him for just such an occasion and ordered him to come out. Minaba prepared for action. Mistress Fiona said that she knew that earth dragons had strong claws, and with their help, they could dig their way even through stones. And she adds that this boulder seemed too strong. She was worried that Minaba's claws would break if he hit it. The man said not to worry about it. He showed the protective iron claw gloves he had made for such occasions, and ordered Minaba to get to work. Minaba struck, and the boulder was gone. Lady Fiona and the girl were amazed by the incredible strength, and the man asked if he had broken his claws, calling him a good boy. The heroes are ready to continue their journey. The man thinks there is curry for dinner tonight, and thanks Vinja for it. He can't wait to try the food that Mistress Fiona has prepared. Brid says that he and Doble will go get some firewood in the meantime. The dragon senses something, and the trainer figures out what happened. The main character wonders in surprise if these are the inhabitants of the Zig tribe. And if this is really a representative of the Zig tribe, then there is no point in attacking him. After all, they came to make an alliance with them. The man says they are not going to attack, and asks him to leave. The hooded man says that the violators must be eliminated. The hero thinks it is a boy. Brid yells for Doble to get help. The hooded man attacks him. He says he doesn't want to fight. The opponent says he doesn't care and is determined to deal with him. The man exclaims in surprise that he is not in the mood to talk at all. The girl says that unfortunately for him, he will not be able to harm Mr. Brit. The maid says he fights well, but a 10-year-old is no match for her. She attacks him. Fiona congratulates Vinya on her excellent work. The girl says that now all that remains is to find out who is hiding under the mask. A fairy dragon appears. The protagonist is surprised that these are the same dragons that live with the Zig tribe. He says that he sees them for the first time, and they are cute. Brid understands that this is a retreat signal, and he says that he is going to run away with this baby, but he will not let him do it. The enemy shouts for Kushulain to return, and that he is not his master. He understands that the boy's flute whistle most likely imitates the roar of a dragon. Small individuals have less developed intelligence than ordinary dragons. They are driven by instincts, so it is easier to find an approach to them. And he whistled the same sound, but in a louder tone. The enemy thinks that the man has not only copied the whistle, but has also subjugated Kushulain. He wonders who this old man is. A hooded man shoots a poison needle. Brid is surprised. The hooded man says that he will go with him, and that he will end his life there. The protagonist wakes up and asks where he is and what happened. His memory is gradually becoming clearer. He thinks that this boy kidnapped him, but what will he do now? The enemy says he is incredible. She explains that she followed him as he entered the mountain, and adds that because of the 3 dragons that guarded him along the way, she was unable to get close. The girl thought that the dragons would be distracted while he was cooking, but even then they sensed someone else's presence. The woman says that he is an incredibly powerful dragon knight, and was able to imitate the sound of a dragon flute and subdue Kuchulain. Brid replies that he is not a knight, but rather a trainer. She does not understand who this is. He explains that he watches over and cares for the dragons. She admires that he is too good and that such talent is wasted, because he would have become the strongest warrior. The girl offers him to become part of their tribe, where he will be respected. She informs him that the Zig tribe generously rewards its warriors, and in the future he may even become the head of the tribe. The main character introduces himself as Brid Sterion, the dragon trainer of the Kingdom of Levantia, and he declines the offer despite being flattered by the opinion. He says he is proud of his less than heroic work. The man says that she likes him even more because of such words, and adds that people who do not become arrogant because of their strength are very rare, and she respects him for this. The hero is surprised and thinks that he doesn't understand what's wrong with this. The woman says that he is worthy of becoming her husband. She says that she completely forgot to introduce herself, and her name is Ailu. Brid asks in surprise that she is a girl. Ailu replies that she is the daughter of the chief of the Zig tribe, and her name is Ailu Zig. She laughs that she is often mistaken for a man, but she does not take offense. The girl says that's enough. He will talk to the leader personally from now on, and she calls him to go. The protagonist reflects that he could try to escape, but what's the point? He has no idea where he is or where the tribe's border ends. The man thinks it would be safer to wait for Mistress Fiona and the others to arrive. Still, he doesn't think he's being led into a showdown. Brid thinks that everyone around him is not particularly happy to see him and seems ready to fight. Ailu explains that it is because she said that he would become her husband because all the men in this tribe were fighting for this place. She says that the men were competing to be the strongest, and it wasn't just her that was at stake, but the future chieftaincy. And she brought him in and said she would only marry him, so now they're angry. Brid is shocked and asks why they're angry at him. The girl says that their tribe values strength more than anyone else, and that she considers him the strongest man she has ever seen. And she adds that he is definitely her type. They arrived at the place. Ailu tells her father that she brought him. Brid looks scared. The chieftain says that Ailu brought him here, and he understands why. However, many disagree with her decision. He says he understands perfectly well, and the fact is that he was kidnapped and brought to their tribe. If they let him go, that would be even better. Someone shouts that he does not agree. The man introduces himself as Kuchi, and says that he was the first suitor for Ailu's hand and heart. And he adds that he will not allow her heart to be taken by a stranger who is not of their tribe. Brid says that he did not intend to. The man asks why she called him strong and says that he will test him now. Kuchi strikes, but the protagonist easily stops him and thinks that's not bad for an outsider, and asks how he is. Brid feels like if this continues, he will crush him. The coaches are shocked by his strength. The man thinks that this is not how he wanted to introduce himself. He screams that he is Brid Sterion, a dragon trainer from the kingdom of Levantia, and he has no intention of becoming Ailu's husband and the leader of their tribe. The hero gets angry and asks if they still haven't calmed down. People are thrilled that he crushed Kauchi with just his strength. They scream that Ailu brought them a truly terrifying man, and his strength is like a fierce dragon, and he did it with one hand. The girl says it was a great sparring match and asks how strong one must be to declare one's intentions. Ailu says that only he is worthy of being their next chieftain. He asks if anyone listened to him. She assures him that he will definitely become a great leader, and he will even like it. Kuchi says that he will take Ayla away from him, making her his woman. He thinks that is not what he wanted. The man challenges him to another fight. Brid says that this is the 100th time he has challenged him to a fight. Someone asks him to calm down, calling him a fool, and turns to the main character. The boy asks him to tell him more about the dragons he tamed. In return, he will tell him everything he knows about the dragon fairies. Brid asks if he's not tired of it yet, since he spent the whole night talking about it. Laos replies that he's not at all. Zircon says that the protagonist will compete with him in a dragon race and asks to give way. Brid replies that they already had a race 2 hours ago, and maybe that's enough. He says he's already realized how much the dragons love him, and he's the first one he's ever lost to in a race. He is told who he will choose. They are the 3 great generals of the Zig tribe. The trainer plans to teach them everything he knows so that the chieftain will choose one of them to marry Ayla instead of him. That way, he can avoid his fate, and it will be much easier for Lady Fiona to negotiate. Laos asks what fate is being discussed. The girl asks him to forget about them and eat in peace. He asks what she cooked herself and says it looks delicious. She hopes he will like it. How can she let her future husband go hungry? And he adds that it is clear that she will make a wonderful wife. The protagonist reflects on the fact that the cuisine of the Zig tribe is surprisingly diverse. It contains many dishes, for example, stewed herbs with spicy butter and very filling dishes. Brid particularly likes the dark, bittersweet drink and wondered what it was made of. The hero says it doesn't matter, if it was served to him, it's safe. Kuchi asks what he's mumbling and suggests they fight. Laos asks him to tell them about the dragons. Zircon says the dragons are waiting and it's time to start the race. Ailu warns Brid not to drink too much of the drink. She says okay. The chief calls Ayla and says that she has brought a good man, and he thinks that before there were disagreements between the 3 generals and he even managed to unite them. Her father believes that he is suitable to be his successor, and he accepts him into his family. The chief replies that he must, however, pass the tribal test. Ailu exclaims in surprise that this is madness. The father informs him that he is not a member of their tribe, he is an outsider. The man says that he cannot trust him with the position of chieftain if he cannot pass this test. Brid asks where they are going, since she has taken them into the forest so suddenly, and hopefully asks if she means to take him outside the clan so he can escape. He thinks that apparently not. The people of the tribe also followed him. They come to a cave. The girl says that he must pass the tribal test. The warrior asks if she is sure. The men say that Brid is not of their tribe, he does not have their blood, and he does not have a fey dragon. Sending him to this test is unwise. Brid asks, what? The coach says that even for them, going through the birth ordeal is very difficult. He asks if she doesn't know, she says she does. The girl says that her father insisted that Brid pass it. Ailu believes that he can pass it. People say that a strong person like the main character can handle the test. The trainer still doesn't understand what they're talking about. Ailu says that in this cave is the nest of the fairy dragon, and he must bring the egg of the fairy dragon. That's the whole test. The hero is shocked. Brid is happy that he was so lucky and now he can see their nest. The main reason why he didn't want to leave the siege tribe so quickly is because he wanted to learn more about the fey dragons. He thinks that as a dragon trainer, it is his duty to learn as much as possible about the different types of these creatures. That is what his elders taught him, and he exclaims that this is excellent. The man declares that he will go. Laos says that his love for dragons is admirable and that he is so fearless in going into the cave when he is defenseless. Zircon says that he accepted such a difficult challenge so easily and that he is a worthy opponent. The man asks the hero to go more carefully and quickly. He notices that the walls of the cave are covered with glowing moss and it is quite light inside. Brid asks Kochi if everything is okay. The man says yes, everything is okay. The hero says it is not okay. The warrior assures that he can handle it himself and asks the others to continue on their way. The trainer thinks that such a sharp stone fell right on the head of poor Kochi. He sees a huge hole and doubts whether they will be able to get around it. In response, another warrior confidently declares that he will take everything upon himself and asks the girls to go first. Ailu moves with the help of a rope and says with relief that they managed to cross the hole. The protagonist admits that it was terribly scary to look down. Zircon asks Laos to hurry up and be careful since he is the last one. He, in turn, becomes indignant and asks if he takes him for a fool. Brid is worried that they have lost one of them again and is worried about what will happen next. The girl reassures him that Laos will be fine as he only caught on a rock and did not fall down. The person is burning, so everyone can suffer. The man says that he slipped and fell on his groin on a rock because he was walking first. The girl thinks that he fell like a dragon rider. She calls it a terrible test and notes that out of the 5, only 2 remain. The protagonist notes that the others were only accompanying him and did not want to undergo the test. Ailu says it is too early to relax, as the real difficulties are yet to come. Brid suddenly notices something flashing. The girl thinks that those who are not related to them by birth will eventually face their wrath, although she hoped that he could avoid it. The man sees 2 creatures and asks if they are dragon fairies, small creatures like Kushalane, but bigger. He wonders why these older dragon fairies see her as an enemy. The protagonist asks why they don't attack Isla. She replies that she is blessed. She explains that from an early age, members of her tribe drink filtered dragon fairy excrement, so the dragon fairies feel a part of themselves in them and do not perceive them as enemies. Brid clarifies that she means excrement. Ayla insists that it is not that, but rather a sacred blessing bestowed upon humans. The hero notes that this does not change the essence. The trainer is amazed to realize how the tribe tamed the fairy dragons, but he does not want to do the same. He realized how it is possible that everyone in the tribe has their own dragon. The girl tells the main character that, by the way, he also drank it. He is shocked, and he does not believe that it was feces, because it was delicious. Brid also asks why he was not told right away that the bitter drink he had been drinking for the past few days was made from this. The man is upset that he drank a couple of cups of this drink and wonders why the dragon fairies still want to deal with him. The girl replies that they have been drinking this drink every day since early childhood, and it has even affected their skin color. Ailu explains that their skin color is different from what he was born with, and their body odor is different from a normal human's. She offers him a sniff, but Brid refuses. The hero thinks that since his skin color is different, he will remain an enemy to them. Ailu confirms that he will have to climb up, overcoming them all. He is shocked and terrified by the number of dragon fairies he will have to overcome. The man claims that without the dragon flute it will be difficult to subdue the dragons and he will not be able to go further. Ailu thinks that if Brid wants to be her husband, he must get to the nest itself and says that the dragons have become more ferocious than usual and is he really going there? He says that he came all this way to see the dragon fairy's nest and it would be a shame to leave with nothing. The girl rejoices at his determination and declares that the feat he intends to accomplish will be in their name. The hero thinks about what to do, because simply climbing up would be too dangerous. He notices something and seems to guess what it is. He says it will help him move forward. Brid realizes that this is their droppings and remembers that in the wild, animals distinguish their own by smell, and dragons are no exception. He remembers how, when he was in the army, his elder taught him a secret way to approach a dragon's nest without attracting attention. To hide from dragons, you had to give your body their scent, and the most effective method was to smear it with dragon droppings. The girl sees this for the first time and finds it very witty. He laughs, asking if it's not disgusting. Brid thinks that in this way he will also reduce her sympathy for him. She is surprised and says that this makes him even more masculine in her eyes. The protagonist explains that now that his scent has mixed with theirs, they don't know whether to attack or not. It all depends on how they perceive it. Brid decides that this is his chance and goes ahead. Ailu wishes him luck. He assumes that the nest was built on this cliff to protect the eggs from thieves, but it will be difficult to climb further with bare hands, and he understands that there is no choice and he will have to show ingenuity. The man reaches the nest and admires what he sees. The trainer is surprised why some of the eggs are already cracked, because the eggs are even larger than the adults themselves, and some eggs are completely broken. The hero realizes that the dragon fairies were so fierce because their eggs were eaten by rats. Brid feels sorry for the poor dragons, as the rats essentially have no choice either, and they need to somehow survive in these caves. But he believes that this is the law of nature, and he, as a human, should not interfere with it. However, he remembers that he is a dragon trainer first and foremost, and his primary duty is to protect them. Therefore, he cannot ignore this situation. The hero shouts to be heard, even though he is quite far away, and hopes that he can get there. Ailu asks in surprise what is happening. Brid happily hugs the wolf dragon, calling it a good boy and saying he's glad it heard his whistle. He explains that wolf dragons have an exceptional sense of smell and scent, able to locate targets within 10 kilometers. The main character apologizes for being so sudden, but he has a task for him. He asks the wolf dragon to mark the territory above. The girl asks him why he asked this dragon to help with the nest. The man replies that she will see now. The trainer explains that urine in the wild is a sign of occupied territory, and animals get information about the area based on the smells around them. Now that the area is tainted with the smell of a strong beast, the rats have no choice but to run away from here in fear for their lives. Brid thinks that this is the best solution, although he feels sorry for these rats, but they will have to look for food elsewhere. He is sure that now that the territory smells of the dragon wolf, weak animals will not come near the nest for several years. The warriors admire him, saying that he is a genius, because no one has ever thought of using dung to pass by fairy dragons and urine to scare away rats from their nest. They admit that they are helpless compared to him. The protagonist asks how they got up here and sees that there was a rope there all this time. The man says that there is one last push left and that he needs to take the eggs and consider the test passed. The man says that he is not going to do that, he just wanted to see the nests up close. Ailu explains that since ancient times, dragon fairies lay 2 eggs, one they keep for themselves and raise, and the second they give to the people of Zig. He notes that even birds sometimes throw weak eggs out of the nest if they think they will not hatch. Brid understands that the logic is quite clear. Why bother with a hopeless egg, because eggs develop differently. The trainer realizes that the reason why the dragon fairies only lay 2 eggs is more simple. They do it so that if something happens to one egg, there will always be a second one. He believes that this is the way of the wild world. The protagonist realizes that this feature of dragon evolution has given rise to, in essence, a unique symbiotic relationship, so the dragon fairies do not mind if the Zig tribe takes 1 egg from them. Ailu convinces Brid to take the egg, explaining that if the dragon itself is willing to give you the egg, then it is a sign of equal status. The man is confused, as he actually wanted to fail this test. He realizes that if he takes the egg now, he will be accepted as Ayla's fiancé. The warriors encourage him, saying that he will make a fine chieftain and that they trust him with her. Brid is unhappy that they are not helping him. The girl asks if he would like to be her husband, and adds that she is a wonderful housewife and knows how to give massages. Fiona appears, asking what's going on. Mrs. Fiona asks what's wrong. Vinya says she's very angry. Brid wonders what he could have done to upset Mistress Fiona. They explain to him that this is called jealousy, because Mrs. Fiona was jealous of him for a beautiful girl, but they call it nonsense. The protagonist reflects that he was kidnapped, and instead of trying to escape, he settled down in the tribe and did his own thing. and that Lady Fiona is rather angry because of his inaction, to which he agreed. He then wonders how to get her forgiveness now. The warrior asks that they have returned already. Vinya is impressed by its scale. Fiona asks for an audience with the chief of the tribe. One of the girls said that she would not give up Brid, to which the other, laughing, called her a joker. The chief was surprised by the fairy dragon's egg and said that it was worthy of his Ailu. He asked if the girls were Brid's friends, as a strong man needs more girls. Mistress Fiona explained to the chief that they had come here to meet him. The leader listened attentively. The girl introduces herself and says that she is the Queen of Levantia. The man asks if she is Ornis's daughter and expresses nostalgia for Levantia. Fiona confirms that the chieftain was friends with her father. Brid wondered if her father had been a close friend of the tribal chieftain, and why then the ties with the tribe had suddenly been cut off. The woman says she will get straight to the point. She explains that she wants to protect her home from the invasion of the Draconian Empire and needs their help. The chieftain firmly refuses. The protagonist is surprised by the refusal, and the man explains that they have already fought the Empire. The chieftain explains that long ago, the Sieg tribe and the Levant kingdom formed a military alliance against the Draconia Empire. They were ultimately defeated badly, with many fighters falling, but they did not give up and were ready to continue the fight. However, Ornis surrendered to the enemy. The man says he was a warrior, ready to fight for his country to the last drop of blood, but in the face of a formidable enemy he became cowardly and begged for mercy. The man still regrets that he ever considered him his friend, and exclaims that Levantia once again wants to join forces to fight the Empire. Fiona replies that it was thanks to her father's decision that she and the chieftain remained alive. She argues that they may think he acted like a coward, but he made the decision because he believed it was right at the time. He was a warrior and, at the same time, a king who carried the lives of all his subjects on his shoulders. And she added that he gave up his pride for the sake of saving everyone. The girl points out that if he had continued this war, there would have been even more victims, and perhaps they would have died in that war too. Fiona says that she is proud of him. He was a wonderful man, a strong warrior and a wise king, and now she is at the head of the country. The man asks if they consider this cowardice after everything he has done for them, and states that she is now the ruler of Levantia, and it is her duty to protect her people. She asks if the Sieg tribe's pride is too great to allow them to fight for their common home when the Draconia Empire threatens all their lands. The chief calls her a girl. The protagonist is surprised that he destroyed the house with one blow. The chief says that he does not intend to listen to her, and if she wants to be heard, she should show her determination. He shows off his severed finger as proof of his determination to become chief. He declares that words about what is right are worthless, and if she wants his tribe to risk their lives going to war, then she should show that she is willing to sacrifice something too. The Queen of Levant, realizing what must be done, says that the gulf between their countries is too deep, and she expected a refusal. She is surprised that they listened to her and even entered into a discussion. She could not have dreamed of more. Fiona states that she is willing to do this if she has to lose a finger to gain their trust. The protagonist asks if she was serious about losing her finger. The girl asks what he's doing. The woman says she just needs to lose her finger, that she doesn't understand why he stopped her. Brid, angry, asks what she was thinking and didn't her parents teach her to take care of herself. The queen replies that she is a princess and is willing to sacrifice for her country. The trainer says that these are the hands and doesn't tell the whole story. He says B's hands are not meant for this kind of thing. He thinks this shows that she doesn't value herself, and he asks if she really needs to mutilate herself to prove something to someone. And he adds that she is a princess, a symbol of the country, and should have thought about what people would say about her actions. Brid states that if she harms herself, it will damage the country's prestige, and she should not do it again. The protagonist, apologizing, stated that he considered his proposal unacceptable. He says that if he wants the finger so much, he can take it. Everyone is surprised at what dragons are doing here. Vinya is surprised to hear the names of the dragons. He says that Fiona accepted him, a loser who had nothing, and for the sake of her kingdom he is ready to do anything. He asks them to accept her proposal. Everyone was surprised that the dragons bowed their heads before them. The chief laughs and says that they, the people who live next to the dragons, are seeing them for the first time, ready to bow their heads for someone, and he believes that she has shown him her determination. She claims that even such a strong man is ready to follow her, which proves something. The man declares that he is ready to re-enter into an alliance with her state. She asks again, surprised, if this is true. He confirms and admits that, frankly, he had thought about making Brid the next chieftain, but after such a statement he no longer considers it possible. The chief warns her not to relax, and if he senses that she is about to give in, he will pay with more than one finger. She swears that she will not fail him, and if he doubts her, he is free to take her life. Everyone is celebrating the alliance. Vinya says they even have seafood in the mountains and calls the oysters beautiful. Ailu explains that these are not seafood, but rock oysters, which live on the rocks. The maid notes that they taste like regular oysters. The girl asks where those two are. The protagonist thinks that the diplomatic expedition was a success, and thinks that Fiona is still angry with him. He suggests going to the others, since the evening is not over yet. She thanks him. Brid asks her why, and she replies that she has a straightforward nature, and despite her appearance, she sometimes acts quite radically and thoughtlessly. The girl admits that at that moment she did not fully realize what she was doing. The hero notes that this is not the first time she has behaved strangely, and even at their first meeting she expressed strange thoughts, which is very surprising since he always saw her as a calm and reasonable person. She says she couldn't contain her feelings, especially since he was involved this time too. Fiona wonders why men do such stupid things. She thinks he promised to be with her forever. Brid thinks that even though he can't hear what she's whispering, he thinks she's scolding him. The girl is grateful to him for stopping her. The princess says that if her emotions get the better of her again, she wants him to be there to stop her. Brid laughs and says he thought she was mad at him for telling her off. The girl says she would have been in a lot of trouble if he hadn't stopped her then. The hero adds that he's not the one who can tell her off all the time. He says he's glad he was able to stop her. It would be bad if her hands got hurt. The girl thinks she's the reason he got hurt. The trainer says the scar is a badge of honor for men, not women. She says it doesn't matter. Brid points out that she was aiming for her ring finger and asks her not to be so careless. Fiona takes his hand and says that the day will come and does not finish the sentence. The princess adds that this ring finger will belong to him. The man is shocked, asks what she said, and thinks that this is another bad joke. The girl offers to dance so as not to sit here. Brid is surprised and asks what he needs to dance with her. The man rejoices at the incredible amount of wealth and is surprised at how much wealth they have brought him, and he adds that with them, Dragonia will reach a new level. The man says that, as expected of his dear son, the second prince of Balbenus. The young man smiles and says that he does not deserve praise, addressing his father.